Good. Yeah, anything to check in on? Anything, any thoughts? Anything arising? Hi, Sue.
I had a thought about
Hi, Sue.
it's kind of a metaphysical question, really.
Mm-hmm.
If we go back to God and lose our identity, which never was anyway, because it is an illusion. I'm trying to square that up with the concept of not coming back.
Okay.
Because if one isn't going to come back, that can't be a possibility, because it's an illusion. Coming back would be a kind of mute question.
Yeah. If the ego doesn't really exist, the world, this reality that we seem to be in, doesn't really exist because it's a projection of the ego. It doesn't really exist. Then if your mind is restored to its true place, its true home of just pure awareness, pure love, of pure oneness, then the illusion disappears. It cannot continue to exist. It is maintained only by belief.
Okay.
That's what he's saying. It's maintained only by your own belief in separation.
Yeah.
It's a construct of belief. So it must disappear when your belief is there's no longer any belief in separation.
Right. So it isn't a matter of coming back, it's a matter of not leaving the dream.
Yeah, the dream just disappears. It's saying that the dream was constructed by the ego as part of its illusion to perpetuate this illusory identity that it thinks it has. It now has projected it out. It now puts you in a body, an external world. There's now projection and perception going on. There's all this other stuff going on, except oneness. And oneness seems to have disappeared.
So if you leave the dream, Jono, this time around, then what happens to everybody else? I assume we all stay in it.
Well, as long as you want to believe in separation, then yes, because no one can force anyone to believe anything. It's up to you. So this is what Jesus is saying. He's saying, okay, he's left the dream, but he's still aware that there are minds that are dreaming, and so they need some help and guidance.
Yeah.
And so from that perspective of the Holy Spirit saying, okay, I can see this isn't the truth, but my children need to be awakened. This is sort of how you could phrase it in words. There's a need for atonement, with one-ment.
Yeah.
And that mind, the Holy Spirit, then becomes your mind. Once the dream has collapsed, there's only oneness. You become part of the Christ mind.
Yeah.
And so then you join the plan. You join Jesus and all the others who've found their way back to oneness, who are now just one mind, calling all the separated minds out of the dream, which is an ongoing process in time. As long as time seems to exist, that process is going on. That one-ment, as he says, at some point, it might take millions of years, just as the separation took millions of years to establish this, and perhaps even longer. So we're talking like long-term. But remember, that's all within the construct of time, which doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
So the dream's playing out in time and space, but actually above that is pure oneness, and that pure oneness always has been and always will be the truth, and that will always be there. And so all you're doing is you're taking your mind out of a belief in time and space, because that's all they are, they're beliefs. So it's a construct that puts you on the timeline. Hi, Kim. A construct that puts you on the timeline. Now your belief is, well, I'm a body, I have this world, I have people, relationships, I have things I desire, things I fear, and I seem to be on this timeline on my life. I seem to be getting older, so I'm born and then I age and I die. You know, that's all the construct, and yet eternity is always it's always there. It's ever present. It's right now. It's right under your nose, literally. We're going to do some breath work today. It's the same idea. It's right there, and yet we miss it. Why? Something that is so obvious. It's right there. It's the present moment. Always. Why do we miss that?
Yeah.
It's a trick, isn't it? I mean, you go, how could we miss that? I mean, like, that's just astonishing that you could miss what's so obvious. And yet that's the programming of the ego mind. And I first read Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now. I remember reading the first chapter. I was it's kind of interesting, but it didn't really drop. The penny didn't really drop. So I had it as like a free download of the first chapter. And then I just left it. And then, I don't know, a year later, 2 years later, I'm reading this and I'm going, whoa, what is this guy saying? This is like a revelation. This is like my eyes are opening up finally. This now thing, I've been missing it my entire life. I realized that. Fortunately, I was in my 20s, so okay, still got time to wake up. But I've been missing this now my entire life. Always about the future for me. It was always the future. What are you going to do in the future? Where are you going? What are your goals, dreams, etc. And then Eckhart comes along, goes, but it's always now. I'm like, yeah, I guess so. I can't really argue with that. It is always now. It was like an opening. That was sort of really the start, I guess, of a spiritual awakening for me. It's like, wow. Okay, I remember reading that. I'd read a chapter every night of The Power of Now. I couldn't wait to read it. It was like something just drawing me in there. After years of doing like personal growth, and it's all about goal setting, and really that mindset is saying, in order to be worthy, you must achieve something. You must do something on the level of form with your life, achieve things, have things, whatever that may be, which I'd bought into, really, hook, line, and sinker. For me, it was, I was expressing that in squash. I wanted to be the world champion, which I didn't get anywhere close to. It's probably a good thing, actually, because I think it just would have strengthened my ego. I would have all been, oh, great, now I'm the world champion. So now I identify with that, which wouldn't have lasted, of course, because, you're only the world champion for a few years. If you're lucky, it doesn't really last. So it was a big letting go process for me. In my late 20s, it was like, okay, everything that you've believed so far, because I'd been doing this personal growth thing since I was 12. Everything that I believed up until that point was false. I had to it's like, hang on, this hasn't worked. Like I believed, Napoleon Hill. I don't know if you're familiar with Napoleon Hill. The Think and Go Rich. What the mind of man can conceive and believe it can achieve. Sounds great. Put that, great. That's what I'm going to go for. I believe that, absolutely. So I do this. I visualize every day. I'm visualizing like I see myself as champion. I'm taking the steps. Went overseas. I was training with the world's #1 player with his coach. And then I get kicked out of England. It's like, what the hell? What happened? The whole thing was like going quite well, and then it just didn't. And so in my late 20s, I had to kind of recognize, like, okay, look, actually, realistically, I'm a good player, but I'm nowhere near #1 in the world. This is just not going to happen. And so it was just like a letting go of all of that. Okay, I have to just drop the identity. I have to drop the goal, the dream, which had really fueled me for 15 years, and go, okay, well, now what? I don't know, really. But I did feel quite peaceful. So, okay, well, I guess I might as well continue playing, because I I can still play and I enjoy it. And I'm only in my late 20s, so I carried on playing for another 10 years. And I probably played better, to be honest. There wasn't any of that pressure. There was no like agenda then. It wasn't like, well, I need to be champion. And every time I was playing, that whole dream was on the line. It was terrible. So if I'd lose, it would be like, oh, you're supposed to be world number one, the ego would say. And look, you lost to this palooka. What the hell? And you just like get really depressed, and then I'd like pick myself up, I'd do some visualizations, like, no, get back on the bus, you can do this, visualize what the mind of man can conceive and believe it can achieve. It's like obsession, OCD. And eventually just decided to let it go. It's like, okay, this actually isn't really serving me. It's not making me happy. In fact, it's making me very unhappy. I realized that. This is like the desire and the desire that the Buddha talked about. And then, as these other teachings unfolded, because I started to meditate and I started to read things like The Power of Now and so on. Then I was like, hang on, there's actually, I could see there's a fundamental contradiction between this personal growth idea of you need to achieve in order to be worthy, and it's really about what you do and what you have. And this idea of you're just being, and you can just be in the now, and you can be okay as you are. It doesn't matter what you do. And I realized you couldn't really reconcile. I mean, Eckhart was saying in Power of Now, don't visualize. I'm going, but that's what they're all saying you should do. Hang on. Okay, so like back up here, so which, there's a contradiction here. Which one are you going to go with here? And it took some time, because it was a whole undoing of a lot of mind programming that I'd done for years, of this visualization, goal setting, etc. But it just made sense. It's like that never really made me happy, I realized. And actually, if I just let it go and I just play, I play better. And so why do I need this overarching goal? Why can't I just go and play? You see? So that was really what I started to understand what flow was. This idea of flow. It's not about the outcomes. Just do the activity for the sake of the activity, because it's enjoyable.
Mm.
And but then after years of that, I was like, okay, but I still feel like I'm missing something. Like, what is the ultimate truth? And that led me to the course. I was like, okay, so I want the real deal. I want the whole thing. That was really my request. And then the course came into my awareness, and I was like, okay, I can see there's like a depth here and a profundity here. Okay, so I need to really study this. And I just got deeper and deeper into it. And it's like, yeah, this actually makes sense. Finally, someone's actually telling it like it is. And it actually starts to make sense. It starts to make sense why the world doesn't really make sense. It helps you understand why it doesn't really work, why things are upside down here. And then it's a great relief, because you don't have to justify it anymore. You just have to go, well, all I have to believe is in the truth. And that's a great relief. Anyway, I guess that's my my check-in. So that's how I came to this onto this part. It's all life experience, that teaches you through your own life experiences. I realize it's like letting go. Letting go is it. That's what it's about. That's the one thing. So many teachers, especially in the personal growth industry, they don't say this is what it's all about. There's one thing you need to do: letting go. That's what you need to do. No, so you've got to do this, and there's 10 steps to this, and there's 7 whatever. They all have their thing, don't they? They spin it around in various but actually the fundamental idea is the same, that the answer's out there and you need to go searching for it.
Yeah.
You need to do something in order to find find some kind of self-worth. The self-esteem is based on what you do. It's like, that is a pretty fragile, I realized, having been through it, it's a very fragile basis on which to base your thought system. Because it can very easily, if you don't do it, if you don't achieve, then pop the bubble, and now I'm depressed and I'm unhappy because I didn't achieve and my expectations haven't been met, which then takes you into Buddhism. You go, hang on, but the Buddha said this 2,500 years ago. Desire is the source of all suffering. You start to like put the pieces together and go, well, who's right? The personal growth guys who are going like, yeah, desire, success, make it happen, or the Buddha who was, you know, a very peaceful, loving guy who has through Buddhism helped millions of people. So you just I found myself just going on another path. It just made more and more sense. And then, you know, the course often comes sort of quite a long way into that path, doesn't it? So it's not the first thing people do often on the spiritual path, which is probably a good thing. It's kind of diving in the deep end, but you started with it. Anyway, anyone else like to, does that sort of give you some perspective on that question?
Yeah, that's good. Thanks, John. Yeah.
Anything to share? Sue, John? Sue, how's the mouth?
Yeah, it keeps getting better every day.
Good. Okay, excellent. So it's
Yeah.
on its way out.
Yeah.
That's good.
I listened to part of the podcast, your podcast on the breathwork.
Yes.
And I always find it really hard to hold my breath. Like in that, like in the thing you do, you know, every day in the meditation where you.
Yes. You hold for like 30 seconds or something.
Yeah. I'll possibly do that. But after that, with the guy you were talking to, you did the alternate nostril breathing.
Yeah.
Which I've done in yoga as well. And like him, I find it much easier to hold my breath doing it that way.
One nostril. Interesting.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah. So it shouldn't really make a difference. But maybe
I think something about, I think it's relaxing doing the alternate nostril breathing.
Yeah, maybe. It's supposed to play with the different brain hemispheres and sort of left nostril activates right hemisphere. Maybe it takes you a little bit out of that, I don't know, fear, like, because see what you're doing with this breath work and the breath holding especially is you're actually challenging one of the primary mechanisms of the body and the way the body interacts with the ego mind, because the ego tells you that you have to breathe. Yes, in order to have life, you must breathe. Was that really true? Seems to be. But as Morpheus says in the Matrix, says, you think that's air you're breathing? Really? Are you sure? So it's a construct. It's part of it's a very entrenched construct for most people. You know, it's like, well, yeah, of course you have to breathe. But if you're really going to into high spirituality, you've got to challenge the entire construct. So if you can hold your breath for, say, you know, an extended period of time, you're actually breaking down that belief, aren't you? Saying, well, actually, I don't need to breathe. Okay, so actually, this I seem to be so dependent on this air stuff that I have to breathe in and out all the time. But is that really the case? You're breaking that down. You're breaking that belief down as you do the practice. It does some pretty incredible things on a physiological level as well. I think that's one of the reasons why I look, you know, young, because I've done a lot of this. And actually, I researched it, and it seems like what happens when you hold your breath for sort of 2-3 minutes or longer is your body starts going into stem cell production. How's that? Yeah. So, you know, the latest medical thing is stem cell research, and, you know, these stem cells can do amazing things, and you can have an injection. I think it costs like, you know, 40,000 pounds or something. It's exorbitantly expensive to have the stem cell treatment. And then the stem cells go and they find the areas in your body that need repair, and they do their thing. And apparently it works pretty well, but it's expensive. So it's only available to, you know, a small group of people who can afford that. But you could just hold your breath you could get the same effect. That's what I love about the yogic science. It's like, hang on, all this stuff that medical science is trying to do and discover, and like these guys have been doing it for thousands of years. They just like, if you hold your breath, it makes sense. So here's the theory. Apparently, well, in the womb, it's a low oxygen environment because we're not breathing, so we're getting oxygen in via the umbilical cord. So all of those cells are growing in a low oxygen environment, and those are the stem cells that then form, they form whatever organs or limbs or whatever, and that all happens in like it's a 2 or 3% oxygen environment, as opposed to what are we here, 15%. So we think more oxygen is better, but not necessarily. So the idea of it is, okay, these stem cells, because they're used to this low oxygen environment, your body can still produce that, but only in a low oxygen environment, because that's like the programming from birth. And the way you duplicate that is you hold your breath. If you hold your breath, the blood oxygen levels start dropping, and you get to a point where, okay, it's now down at 2 or 3%. And then the stem cell production starts kicking in, and then they can start to travel apparently in the bloodstream. So they can go to various places, wherever they need to go to do the repair work. Which sort of explains quite a lot. That's why these yogis look so young, because they're doing this stuff, a lot of breath holding, and stem cells get produced. And then, well, hang on, I got the fountain of eternal youth. You've probably heard, I don't know if you ever read Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East.
No.
What was the guy's name? John T. Baird or something. And he went there, and it was a little bit controversial because it was like he's talking about these guys flying across valleys, and they're doing, like in one, like they're moonwalking. They're like in one stride, they'll just go 10 meters, and they live for hundreds of years. And he went on an expedition to Tibet in the late 1800s or early 1900s, when it was still really close to Westerners, and wrote about all this stuff. And people were like, this is incredible. You're making this up. But was he? Because in Tibet, they've been practicing these things for hundreds of years. And they just, it was uncorrupted by any Western ideas. It was just this pure, and this is what they did, a lot of breath work. And apparently some of these guys were hundreds of years old, and they looked like they were, 30 or 40. So fountain of eternal youth, what is possible? Who knows? If you really lived that way, if you were doing this breath work from, childhood, and you lived this way, and you didn't have any of the corruptions of Western society that age us, who knows? Maybe we could live hundreds of years. Would you want to, is the question, of course, but maybe not in a Western society, but maybe in Tibet, maybe you would, because it was just really peaceful and beautiful. And they used the mind to deal with a lot of the challenges of living in such a hostile environment. So they would, instead of going, okay, well, we need to create this whole economy, and we need to have warm clothes, so we need to have manufacturing. They said, no, we're just going to use the breath, and we're going to train you how not to get cold. So they've got something called tumo breathing, where they raise the body temperature, and they can melt ice. So they can sit, one of these guys, advanced practitioner, can sit in minus 20 degrees with a blanket of ice that's frozen on them, and they'll just melt it. And they'll just sit there the whole night, and they'll be fine. They're not freezing. Their body is on fire, basically, because they know how to raise their body temperature with their breath. So, and the breath was really the key to all of these things. So it's enormously powerful. We just have a little glimpse of it now. These yogic techniques, well, yeah, I do a bit of breath. That's just a little taste of what is possible if you really went down this track of mastering your breath. It leads to these pretty extraordinary cities. They call them powers. They're like, wow, like you can melt snow with your breath. You don't get cold. So they'd walk around in minus 20 degrees in that freezing cold weather, and they're not cold. It's just their body, because they know how to do the breathing. And in terms of transportation, because Tibet is so mountainous and stuff, it was really useful if you could just walk, because like you can't really build roads and stuff. So they would just like walk, but they had this moonwalking thing. So if you can walk 10, 20 meters in one go, it's like, woo, okay, off we go, woo. And it's very quick. Like they could cover 100 miles in like a day. Extraordinary, really, but it just shows you what. So all of those laws of time and space that in the West we've so like, okay, well those are real, and now we're going to create solutions to overcome these. Actually, it can all be done on another level with the mind. It just you've got to be pretty dedicated. You've got to practice, these things. It's not just going to come overnight, especially now, in the West, we've got all these preconditioned ideas. Oh, no, that's possible. That's possible. That's not possible. Because Western science has said, no, Western science says if you hold your breath for longer than, say, 5 minutes, you'll die. Well, I'm a testimony that's not the case. I've held my breath for 34 minutes, probably longer, but that was the one time I actually timed it, and I was fine. No problem. So how do you explain that thing? The yogis can do it for days. They can bury their head in the sand and they're not breathing. So, okay, well, how are they doing it then? There must be something else, that transcends that breath mechanism. So what starts to happen when you do this power breathing, you hold the breath, is these stem cells start producing. But I believe you're actually tapping into Kundalini energy. You've heard it, you're familiar with Kundalini energy.
Yeah.
So it's this energy source in the base of your spine that for most people they haven't activated. It's kind of trapped there. And so now they're using lower forms of energy. So they're using air. There's prana that comes in, or chi as they call it in China, or prana in the Eastern, in the yogic tradition. So there's an energy that comes in, because it's really just we're energy beings. This is what quantum mechanics is saying. It's all energy. So you think it's air, but it's actually you're breathing in a form of energy, and that energy is now being translated into your energy system, your body, and it's using it to maintain its existence. Okay, so air is one of those. Sunlight's another. Food is another. Water, and so on. All of these are forms of energy, right? But they're actually quite low forms of energy because they're quite dense. So
Hi, Kim.
Hi, John. I guess John has got disconnected.
Froze there.
Yeah.
Sometimes my camera does that for whatever reason. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Can't see you though.
Yeah, let's see if we can address that. Start video. Okay, here we go. Okay, so for whatever reason, this computer does this from time to time. It just it's on an external webcam, just stops working. So if you tap into this Kundalini energy, you have another source of energy, right? This is an internal source of energy, and I believe that, and I can't say for a fact because like Western science doesn't really study this stuff. There's no absolute proof, but it seems to me logical that if you cut off one source of energy, so your breath, you hold your breath for long periods of time, like I did. If you cut that off, then your body has to find something else. Right? And so it starts tapping into the Kundalini energy, and you start drawing it up the spine much faster than you would otherwise do that. So Sue, you mentioned you were feeling like a warm kind of tingling up the spine, an energy rising. Well, that's Kundalini. And that can actually fuel your brain. So if your brain's got another internal source of energy, it doesn't need the air, well then you're fine. You're being fueled internally. So I think that's what's happening, which is why then you don't need to breathe. You just sit there and it's really blissful. Just sitting there, and you can feel the energy running up your spine, very peaceful, and there isn't that urgency to breathe. So one of the interesting things, also this yogic chap said, and I'll try and find the video and send you a link to it because it's really interesting. So a doctor, Indian doctor who's Western trained, who then went into the yogic stuff, and he said, okay, so let me try and understand these yogic practices from a Western medical perspective and understand why they work. And then he wrote a book about it, which is quite, because then you got, you know, West meeting East and going, okay, let's try and understand what's actually happening here. And actually, there is a science behind the yogic teachings. It's just not a Western science. So they, you know, Western medical science. Well, no, you know, we don't go there. That's not possible, because it's about empowering people. You see, if you really empower people with this knowledge and you teach them this, your entire business model's gone. Sorry, you don't need the drugs. You don't need all the stuff that they've made up to meet all these apparent needs and problems, do you? It's like you just, yeah, I'm healthy. Like yoga is about the science of health. It's based on truth. So it's not really a business model. You can't if people aren't sick, you can't, you know, your whole system, they don't need you anymore. So that's why. So when you start going down this track, you will find that, you know, it does start to really fundamentally challenge your belief system, maybe, and fundamentally improve health, well-being. You know, things start getting rewired. You hold your breath for long periods of time. It does some amazing things to the body's biochemistry, which as I said, haven't really been well studied and documented. It would be really interesting if someone did study it. Said, okay, so let's really look at this from a Western medical perspective and use our understanding of science to understand what's actually going on here. But you see, I think it challenges too much the whole paradigm, because Western medical science is based on the body as some kind of existent entity. The body is real. The body's a mechanism. You can treat it. You can fix it. You can, you know, etc. And the yogic stuff, so, you know, the body is just energy. It's just energy. And so it's very in flux. You can change this energy. If you know how, you can reform it, you can change it. It's very malleable. It's like putty. So the yogis just know it's energy. Can work with energy and just mold it as they want. And the breath is usually where they start. Breath work is a foundational technique to having that mastery. So I hope that's a little bit of introduction to actually today's session on breath work. So persevere with it. You know, just hold your breath for as long as you can, and just maybe go. You know, you'll find it gets easier. If you can only ever do 30 seconds, well, that's okay. You know, there's no, you have to do this. But in the breath holding, you're also challenging this idea that you have to breathe. So one of the things this yogic guy said, the doctor I mentioned in India, he said that the breath flows in and out, you know, so there's this flow of breath, and we're so accustomed to that happening that now you stop that process and you go, well, the body is uncomfortable with that. It wants to keep on, it's been in the cycle for so long, breathing in, breathing out, that it's like if there's no movement of air, it gets uncomfortable. And so then you feel this, like after 20 or 30 seconds, it gets really uncomfortable. But is that really because you need air, or is that just because this habitual pattern is not happening and the body starts to go, hang on, this isn't what I'm used to. You need to breathe now, you see. So it's breaking through that as well, because it's just habitual. You think you need to breathe in and you need to breathe out, but actually you can hold your breath for, you know, for much longer. But even Western medical science says 2-3 minutes, no problem. You're not going to die. You can hold your breath for 2 or 3 minutes, and you know, you won't have any. You're just, your blood oxygen levels will drop. But so even if you go to, you know, 2 or 3 minutes, that's pretty good. You'll start getting those stem cell effects. So just persevere with it. We'll do some power breathing. I'll go through the technique again, and as you see, it's included in the meditations and so on. So just one power breath. Okay, just try and hold it. Go into that space. What I'm trying to do is get you into space where, although there's an intensity with your breath, you can transcend that. So you're almost creating. It's like creating the intensity, creating difficulty, and then taking your mind above that, which is another part of the mind training, you see. So when there's intensity in your life, you can just, okay, but I'm used to this because I've trained myself through this breath work to deal with the intensity. Maybe there's a little bit of panic, but I go into another place. I transcend it. I go into this higher state of mind. So it's a way of creating that intensity just through the breath, and then training your mind not to get caught up in it, and to be able to go to the higher level and just find peace, no matter what. And then, that's equanimity training, isn't it? Or forgiveness training. You just, okay, if I can hold my breath for that long and stay equanimous, then whatever life throws at me, like I'm more able to handle that. If you can hold your breath for half an hour, is there anything you can't do? That was sort of my logic. It's one of the reasons I did it. Okay, well, hang on. This is because it's a mind training thing. Your mind then just becomes really, really disciplined and focused. If you can focus on just that single thing and maintain it for minutes at a time, when there's all this, I mean, it was quite excruciating, I have to say, to break through it, because you really, feel like it's that whole fight or flight thing kicks in, and the whole body goes into that mode. But you can break through it. You can get beyond that, which is the power of this. And then I think you've rewired your whole system quite profoundly. So that's the idea of the power breath work, which leads into Kriya breathing, which, if you've done power breathing for a while, I'll teach you. It's kind of just taking it to another level. You just hold your breath for longer. And that, I don't know if you know about Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda. You heard of him?
I've heard you speak of him.
Yeah. So he was a yogi who went to California. He was sent by his guru and said, right, you got to take yoga to the West. So he was really the first person who introduced yoga into the West. And then it started from there. And now it's become, this global movement, and everyone thinks yoga is like doing these, asana postures and you're on your mat. But actually, the yoga he was teaching was this much deeper inner yoga, and this breathing technique called Kriya, which came from a guy called Babaji. So just so you know the lineage of this guy is apparently still alive, ascended master, knocking around the Himalayas for 2,000 years, doesn't die. Just the deathless master of the Himalayas, they call it, because he's in and out of form. The form of the body doesn't hold him. So he can appear as a young boy, he can appear as an old man. It's like whatever, like the mastery of the mind is so much that the form, he can go in and out of form as he wants, and disappear, reappear. So that this technique got given by him to the first guy in the lineage, a guy called Lahiri Mahasaya, who went up into the Himalayas, got lost in a snowstorm, and then this master appeared to him and showed him this. And then the lineage, he taught someone else, he taught Yogananda, who went to California, who taught a guy called Manny Fingo, who's a South African, who taught a guy called Barry Spitz, who was my teacher. And so then, and then just it's you go, okay, well, it came to me. There's obviously a reason. I didn't ask for it. Well, I did actually, because I'd read the book, and he talks about the science of Kriya in his book, but he doesn't tell you how to do it. And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty good stuff. I'd like to do that. But where? There's no like, oh, well, there's the Kriya yoga studio, go do it. I thought I'd have to go to India, but then literally around the corner from my yoga studio here in Johannesburg, I just bumped into this guy, and we got chatting, and then he says, well, I'll teach you everything. He told me about power breathing that he studied he learned his power breathing from the Monaco Olympic team. He'd gate crashed their sessions when he was living in Monaco. And he said, well, I'll teach you everything I know. I'm like, cool, great, for free. And then in our first session, he's teaching this power breathing. He says, right, now we're going to do some Kriya Yoga. And he's got another guy there he's been doing for a few months. I'm like, oh, is that the same Kriya Yoga as Paramahansa Yogananda talked about? He said, you know about Yogananda? I said, yes, I do. I've read the book and I wanted to do it. Then he's like, oh, this is my protege. I've got to teach him everything, which is great. So he taught me the Kriya Yoga, the power breathing, and then the Kriya Yoga. And I just took it. I went, okay, I'm just going to see where this can go. And he was like, how long are you holding your breath for? 3 minutes? I think that's dangerous, John. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm still doing it. I just kept going. And just kind of broke through the breath barrier, I call it. Anyway, so that's a little bit of the background to this stuff. So there's some really, really good stuff here, but you got to practice it. And the only way you get the benefit is if you practice. And it'll help your your course practice. So you got to understand, I mean, these yogis, they're all into, let's say, Vedanta, Vaita Vedanta, or whatever. The practices and the understanding went hand in hand. They didn't get to that non-dual understanding without a lot of practice of these spiritual practices. I think that's maybe, again, in the West, we miss that. So the course has got this non-dual teaching, and yet, okay, to be fair, Jesus has given us mind training exercises. They're little, breath spray, little mind training exercises. But why not incorporate some of the Eastern practices as well? Which is sort of what I've done. I've gone, okay, well, take the teaching. It's a non-dual teaching. Incorporate some of the breath work, because that's going to just take it to another level and get you to understand, experientially understand more of what he's saying. Because when you go into a samadhi state, it's not like it's not like someone is telling. It's not a theology that oneness is true. It's just your experience that oneness is true. You know it because you're feeling it. You're in that, in that oneness state. And so it's an altered state, and the breath work helps you get there. So now you experience, what Jesus is saying in the course. And you go, well, absolutely, that's my experience. It makes complete sense. And if you know it experientially, you don't have to have an intellectual understanding. It just makes sense. So, and he does say, what this is aiming towards is a universal experience rather than a universal theology. So breathwork is all about experience rather than theological ideas. Okay, so any questions on that? Anyone else like to share anything or check in? Otherwise, we'll go into some breathwork.
Just very quickly, I actually did the Wim Hof breathing yesterday and today. And yesterday, I'm also like Sue.
Awesome.
I struggle holding my breath. Or I'll hold it, but I can't, then I have to concentrate on holding my breath rather than thinking the thoughts. I can't relax into it.
Yeah.
And with that Wim Hof, you have to breathe in and out 30 times, breathe deep out, and then you hold it, but while you breathe out. And that felt I could do it for, it was definitely more than 30 seconds comfortably, but comfortably as in fairly comfortably, but not thinking about other things, but I didn't feel like that panic. Okay, then eventually I did. So he says with that, it's like your body's got alkaline, even though he says your reticular activating system of your brain, the RAS, already it's will start kicking in, earlier while you're holding it, and adrenaline will start going, but your body's alkaline. It's be made more alkaline. He didn't go into the reason why. But yeah, overall I felt that I could manage.
Okay.
That time
so you're holding it on the after the exhale.
Yes. But after these deep breaths in and out for 30 times.
Yeah.
So it's obviously
you've oxygenated your system then.
Yeah.
And then the blood oxygen level is going to drop, but it's already been elevated.
Yes.
So
yeah,
we're gonna help.
and also he also spoke. I think he said about it's good for your cells, like your cancer cells and things like that. He didn't go into detail if it means you might already have some, or but I guess it's tying up to what you're saying about the stem cell research as well, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm also aware of that, but it probably. And also the idea that oxygen, when we think oxygen is good, but look at what happens when you put oxygen, a little bit of water and metal, it rusts, right? Oxygen decays things. So it's this oxidative, and in food technology, and so they talk about antioxidants, because too much oxygen actually it oxidizes things and it makes them rust, it makes them decay faster. So too much, if we're breathing too much, that's not going to be a good thing. We can over breathe. You look at animals that breathe fast, dogs, pant, they don't live very long, do they? 10 years, 15 years. The animals that breathe slowly, tortoises, elephants, slow breath rate, they live for sometimes, tortoises can live for a couple 100 years. Very slow breathing rate, 4 breaths a minute or less, they reckon. So clearly there's something about, you slow down the decay rate when you breathe less. You don't need that much oxygen. So that's the idea of the breath holding. Go into a low oxygen environment, slow everything down, and it's actually really good for your health. Which is, again, counterintuitive. You say more oxygen is better. No, not necessarily. Not at all.
What about those oxygen, like you go at oxygen treatment? That seemed to have.
Well, they tend to be with O3, with ozone. That's.
Oh yeah.
So that's a different, O2 and O3 have different effects in your body, because it's all about like what oxygen does to like O2. It accepts free radicals, accepts other electrons. I'm getting my chemistry right. So it actually rips. It will rip other things, little atoms away from other molecules, and they will then bind to the oxygen. You see. So I think that's why that's how oxidation works on a chemical level. And obviously that's not always going to be, if those cells are healthy living, that's not going to be helpful. It's going to be actually decaying them. As far as I understand the chemistry, it's a while since I've done science and stuff, but that's what oxidation is. So you want to, whereas O3 has a different, because there's 3 molecules bonded together. It has a different effect, a more positive effect. But it'd be interesting to get more into the science of it, actually. Maybe I must do a bit more research. But it seems to work. It's whatever. The nice thing about breathwork is, okay, you don't have to understand the science, just do it, and it works. You feel the benefits, you see the benefits. So just do it. If you want to go more into the science, there's plenty of research on the internet. So yeah, with this, try and hold it in the pause between the inhale and the exhale, and then between the exhale and the inhale, you try and hold it for the same length of time. So it's matched, which you might struggle with, especially on the exhale. So when I started doing this, I was quite good at the holding, and then I went to a guy called Dan Brulé, who's a sort of breathwork teacher. He came and did a workshop. He said, "Oh no, you must definitely hold it as long on the exhale." And he was matched these. And I was like, "Well, okay." And then I found that really difficult, because you're completely empty, and then, wow, okay, I'm completely empty, and now I've got to hold. But after a week of trying that, it became easy. So okay, well, now I can just hold in that empty state. So yeah, I'll just guide you through this and try doing both. Try and hold it for as long as possible on the between the inhale and the exhale, and then on the exhale, trying to hold it for equal length of time. You probably won't manage. You'll probably manage 5 or 10 seconds, but see how long you can go. And notice when that discomfort arises and you feel that sort of urgency to breathe, just try and go into a place in your mind where you can sort of transcend it. You can just find peace no matter what. So that's the mind training here. Okay, even though there's this urgency in the body, I can take my mind away from that. So what you're training your mind to do is not to be so invested in the body's signals. You know, this fight or flight response that we're so hardwired into, you're training yourself through this breath work to overcome it, which is really powerful. If you can start doing that in this trained way, then as these things happen in life, you don't have to react as much. You go, okay, I can observe, body's got a reaction going on, there's some emotion, I can observe it, but I don't have to allow that to draw me in, to become me, as it were. There's a part of your mind that can just be aware of that. So you're training that through this breath work as well. So there's many reasons to do it.
I find, John, that if I hold my breath for a period, you know, for as long as I can, then when I release, and then I want to kind of breathe very frequently.
Yeah. Sort of catch up.
Yeah. Which feels kind of counterproductive.
Yeah. Yeah, ideally you want, you know, remember your body wants to go back into its normal rhythm of breathing in and out in this flow, as I said. And one of the reasons why you struggle with the holding is that this goes counter to what, you know, it's used to. But is that really required, or is that just a habitual pattern? It's like you've been breathing in and out in this flow for so long. It's like, oh, now suddenly you're not doing that. There's going to be a resistance to it. And the training is, okay, we'll just go through that resistance. You know, with your mind can overcome any of these seemingly hardwired bodily mechanisms, because the mind is more powerful than the body. That's what you're training it to know and accept through this breath work, aren't you? You're not bound by the you know, even the breath. You can transcend that. You can overcome that. So just persevere with it and try and make it really smooth. So when you exhale, you hold it for a long time and then go smoothly into the next inhale. So there's no, okay, now I break the form, you know, have to kind of breathe. Okay, now I can do it, you know, it's like trying to just make it smooth. And this will take practice. It's not going to happen overnight, but that's why it's called practice. Practice makes perfect. So eventually you get to the point where you can do a whole series of these power breaths, and it's just very smooth. You breathe in, you hold for 30 seconds, 40 seconds, a minute. It is for you. Exhale, exhale, nice smooth exhalation. There's nothing that's jerky. Okay, so it's also about the smoothness and the flow of it. The more you can do this, the more you'll find you have a mastery of your mind. You're able to flow more in life. And then at the bottom of the exhale, you exhale and you hold. And you're like, okay, I can just hold there for 30 seconds to a minute, same length of time. And I move smoothly into the next inhale. Hold, and the whole thing is like, it's the idea of box breathing. So you match the inhale with the exhale. So those are equal, and then the holds, the length of the holds are equal. And it's just a nice kind of smooth flowing experience rather than sort of jerky. And as I said, you know, you won't get there straight away, but that's why you can practice, you know, something to work towards and practice. Okay, so any other questions or any comments? Anyone want to share anything? Karen, anything to share? No, I don't know if Karen's still there. Okay, so let's go into the breath work, shall we? Okay, so just making yourself comfortable. So you're going to sit with your You're sitting on a chair, so do your feet shoulder width apart. Cup your hands in your lap, keep your back straight. If you're going to sit on the floor, you can do this cross-legged, sitting on the floor. You can support your back. You find difficult to keep a straight back, it's very important to keep your back straight. So on a chair, you've got a bit of support with the back of the chair. If you're sitting on the floor, you could support your back against a wall, often raising yourself up on a cushion that's a few inches above the floor is helpful. And then so your legs are a little bit downwards, that helps to keep the back straight. So the reason we keep the spine straight is we're trying to raise this Kundalini energy up the spine. And if your spine is curved, that's not going to happen as easily. Okay. So keep your back straight, close your eyes, and start off with a nice deep breath in through the nose. As you breathe in to the lower stomach, notice the stomach pushing out. Now you're just going to clench the sphincter muscle. It's the muscle used to contract the flow of urine or squeeze the last drops out. Just lock the energy in by clenching the sphincter muscle. And you might feel a little bit of warm, tingling energy at the base of your spine. And the second phase of the breath, breathe into the chest. Feel the chest rising, feel the energy rising up your spine into your chest, your heart center. And now squeeze your abdominal muscles in and down. So your side abdominal muscles, they're called rectus abdominis muscles. You squeeze them in and down. So you lock the energy in. These are yogic energy locks. And then third phase of the breath, like you're breathing into the upper chest and the head. You pause at the top of the inhale. Feel this energy rising up your spine. You might feel a warm tingling thread flowing all the way from the base of your spine onto the crown of your head. And you just keep those other two locks going while you put your chin forward on the chest. So maximal inhale breath. And you just hold it for another 20 seconds or so. Just observe, you're in this very still, calm mental state. The gap between breaths. You can really find some peace, some stillness, some silence. Hold it for another 10 seconds. Notice any thoughts, any emotions arising. If you're feeling at all stressed, just observe that. Now, you're going to exhale, so come up with your chin level to the ground. Exhale out through your mouth. Exhale. And you just feel that energy that you raised up subsiding back down the front channel of your body over the course of the exhale, which is about 10 seconds or so. At the bottom of the exhale, pull the lower stomach sharply into the spine and expels the last remaining air out. And you just rest here for a few moments. See how long you can hold this. The bottom of the exhale. Just pause, hold your breath. Again, try and find the stillness in the gap. Even if you really want to breathe, just hold it a bit longer. Try and find some equanimity. And then smoothly breathe in again through your nose. So breathing in to the lower stomach, first of all, clench the sphincter muscle. So you feel the pelvic floor lifting and raising. That locks the energy in. Feel the energy rising up your spine into your heart center. So you breathe in the second phase of the breath into your heart, your chest. You feel the chest rising. Squeeze the abdominal muscles in and down. You lock the energy in. You keep that pelvic floor lock, the root lock going. And you breathe in again. You draw the energy up the spine, all the way into the crown of the head. Feel this warm, tingling thread of energy going up the spine to the crown of your head. Pause at the top of the inhale. Keep your back straight. Just put your chin forward on the chest. So this is another energy lock. So you keep the energy in your head. Keep the other locks going while you hold your breath for another 30 seconds or so. And just notice any thoughts and emotions arising. And they're just passing by. They're like cloud patterns. They come and they go, even if they're quite intense. Mind might be screaming at you, breathe, breathe, you fool. What are you doing? Just ignore that. Find some stillness for another few seconds. Peace that passes all understanding. And now you're going to exhale. So bring your chin level. Exhale out through your mouth. The airflow out through your mouth. Feel that energy, that heat, pressure that existed in your head. You're just letting it all subside back down the front channel of your body. You release the locks. Just let it all sigh out. A nice smooth exhalation over about 10 seconds. At the bottom of the exhale, pull the lower stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. And just pause here. Gap between breaths. Just find some stillness and silence. You feel a bit panicky as you need to breathe. Just observe that equanimously. Try just detach your mind from it. Hold it for a few seconds longer. And then move smoothly into the next inhale. So breathing in, notice how the stomach rises. Clench the sphincter muscle, lock the energy in. Feel the energy rising up of its own accord into your heart center. Breathe in again, second phase of the breath, into the heart center, into the chest. If it helps you, you can put one hand on your heart just to connect in with your heart space. Lock the rectus abdominis muscles, so squeeze those in and down. So you lock the energy in. And then you draw the energy all the way up the spine to the crown of your head. Feel this warm, tingling thread of energy rising up the spine into the crown of your head. Just pause at the top of the inhale. Smile. Again, observe any thoughts, any emotions arising. And you just let them drift by. These are just cloud patterns. They have no power to obscure the eternal awareness, peaceful, calm awareness. So hold your breath for 10 seconds more or so. Finding some stillness in the intensity. It's like the hurricane, the eye of the storm. There's absolute stillness. And then you exhale, chin level, release the locks. The airflow out, nice and smoothly. You feel the energy you raised up into the crown subsiding back down the front channel of your body. Coming to rest in your lower stomach and your groin. Pull the lower stomach sharply into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. Just pause here. And just hold this for as long as you can. Again, observing any sensations in the body, any thoughts, any emotions. If you really feel desperate to breathe, just try and hold it a little bit longer, a few more seconds. And when you can't do that anymore, just breathing in again. Just normally, so just take a few normal breaths. Observe your state of mind, thoughts, your emotions. Notice any change compared with 12 minutes ago when we started this. Maybe you're feeling a bit calmer, clearer, lighter, freer. So just observe that. The more you observe these states, the more you can anchor them in. Stay in this calm, clear, light, aware state. So you just through this breathing altered your state of awareness, which is why these techniques are so powerful. Okay, so before we go into alternate nostril, any comments or questions on that?
I find it difficult.
Yeah?
Holding it on the in-breath is easier than the exhale, for sure.
Hmm. Yeah, that's like another level of it. But actually, it's very doable. With a bit of practice. It took me about a week to get the exhale one right. And then I was like, okay, well, I can just hold it for as long as because it's like this inbuilt mechanism. You want to breathe. It's so entrenched in our body-mind system. So you're just rewiring that. It's going to take a little bit of time. But practice, persevere with it. You are practicing it if you're doing any of the meditations or the breath breaks. There's always one, sometimes two power breaths that get you to take. So that's an opportunity to practice it. But you can practice this specifically. You could just go, okay, I'm going to do 10 minutes of power breathing now, if you want to. Add it to your morning routine. Do it some other time in the day. It's quite good before exercise, actually. I don't know if you exercise at any kind of intensity, but before you run or something like that, or any kind of cardio exercise. It's a really good way to just warm up your whole respiratory system. And it was taught to me, this power breathing. The reason why Barry taught it to me was he said, well, it's going to improve your endurance and your performance in your squash, which I think it did, actually. It gives you a little edge. Because you're breathing, you're actually expanding your functional lung capacity. Although you can't expand like the volume of your lungs, that's fixed. You can expand how much of them you're using.
Yeah.
And most people are not using their full lung capacity. So we breathe quite shallowly, don't we? So just do a little exercise now. Take a few sort of shallow breaths through your mouth. Just like 10 breaths, and notice what happens. Where are you breathing? And how does it feel when you do that? Yeah. So how did that feel?
It was very upper chest.
Yeah. Quite shallow, isn't it? Upper chest, you're not really engaging your diaphragm when you do it. So you want to actually, with nasal breathing, so if you breathe in through your nose, try 10 slow breaths in and out through your nose. And notice the difference. Notice where the breathing's happening as you do that. So the stomach tends to rise, doesn't it? You're doing it correctly. The stomach rises, then the chest rises, and then it subsides back in. Then you repeat. So it's an inhale, stomach rises, chest rises. Exhale, those kind of suck back in. So you're engaging the diaphragm, which is this muscle that sits just below the rib cage. Draws the energy in, diaphragm expands, draws the air in, diaphragm contracts, exhales it out. So you're pulling the air into the deeper parts of your lungs by doing this, which means you engage your full lung capacity. And if all of those little alveoli things, broccoli type things that absorb the oxygen are being used, well, you don't need to breathe as much. You don't need all this fast, shallow breathing, like slow, deep, rhythmic breathing. Now gets per breath, you're getting more oxygen in. It's also being warmed. If it's going through the nose, it's being warmed because now it's going through the nasal passages down the back of the throat. And in that journey, it's getting warmed up. So we all know if you're breathing in cold air through the mouth in winter, it's really harsh on the chest, isn't it? It's like burns because it's too cold. So this warms the air up. It cleans it because you've got this filter mechanism in your nostrils. So if ever you've been in London and you've blown your nose at the end of a day, what comes out? All this like gunky, it's all dark stuff because it's been filtered. So it's been filtered and cleaned, purified, warmed up. Now it hits your lungs and it's being drawn into the deeper parts of your lungs. So per breath, you absorb much more oxygen. So you don't need to breathe as much. And then the exhale is more efficient as well because the diaphragm then contracts, expel the stale air, carbon dioxide and stuff out. And you get in when you're breathing nasally, you get into the right ratio, the breaths. If you overbreathe and you've got too much oxygen, that's a problem for the body. It needs a certain amount of carbon dioxide and nitric oxide. And if you start overbreathing, get too much oxygen, that's when, so when we did the holotropic and stuff, you get that tingling feeling and that gives you a specific sensation. And in holotropic, that's what we're trying to do. But normally that's not going to be helpful. So you want to maintain the correct balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide and nitric oxide. And nasal breathing does that automatically. If you breathe through your mouth, you start messing with that balance. And that's why you feel sometimes a bit lightheaded, a little bit tingly, a little bit out of sorts, because you're messing with the nitric oxide, carbon dioxide, oxygen balance, which then has those immediate biochemical effects. You can feel it. So those nice, calm, deep rhythmical breaths, slow, deep rhythmical breaths are the best way on an ongoing basis to breathe, and because they help keep your body in that biochemical balance, correct ratio of oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitric oxide, and much more efficient breathing. So you only need to breathe a few times a minute. If you breathe in really deep, slow breaths, you can get to maybe 5 or 6 breaths a minute, 1 every 10 seconds. If you're exercising, you can use this nasal breathing technique when you're exercising. Even when you're doing intense exercise, it's possible. You can train your mind, train yourself just to breathe in and out through the nose. But when you walk,
that's interesting, because when we do our Nordic walking, I notice that I breathe through my mouth a lot.
Yeah. So try breathing in and out through your nose instead. You'll see. You might find it a bit difficult to start with, but then you just got to condition your system to do it. So you might just drop your level a bit. You just do a bit slower, so you can breathe in and out through your nose, and your system starts getting used to that. And actually, it's a much more efficient way of breathing because you're getting in more oxygen per breath. It's warmed, it's clean, it goes into the deeper parts of your lungs, and you're activating parasympathetic nervous system as well, which is the relaxation response. So you're much more likely to be in flow when you're doing your Nordic walking than if you're breathing through your nose and you're breathing through your mouth. Because the mouth breathing tends to activate sympathetic nervous system. That's the fight or flight response, and it's very fatiguing.
Yeah.
You stay in that for quite a long time, the body gets fatigued. Whereas with parasympathetic, it doesn't. So you can go for hours. When I taught myself to breathe through my nose, and I was playing professional squash, it was quite amazing. It's like, wow, it just like hits another level here. It can go forever. I'm not getting tired. I remember just being able to do stuff that like previously had been really hard. And it was just a breeze. It was amazing. It's like, wow. I could do in squash. I don't know if you ever played squash, but you do this thing called ghosting. It's an exercise where you just do the movements. You play the shots, but there's no ball. You're just practicing the movements, which is quite hard, So there's no ball to distract you. You do like a minute on, 30 seconds off. And I remember once, so like 10 sets of that. So 10 to 15 sets. That's quite a good workout. You're doing 15 sets of a minute with 30 seconds rest. It's like you're mimicking quite a hard game in a match. And so I remember once, like I just got into this and I started doing this, and I finished a match. I played a match in a league in England, and I felt really good. I'd won the match easily. I just felt like, wow, I'm not even tired. And I went on to the next door court, and I just did half an hour straight, no rest, just half an hour straight ghosting. I was like, and I wasn't tired. I was just like cruising around the court. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I'm like, really, I'm in flow, and I'm not fatigued. There was no cardio fatigue. There was none of that fight or flight response. Oh, you're short of air. It just went forever. Could have carried on, but I had to stop because I had to go and shower. And it was a league match, so it's that was the one other guy playing. I was like, wow, this is like, you think there are these limits, and then you start to do this, and it's like, wow. So I'd really encourage you, in your walking, John and Sue, just get into the rhythm of this deep diaphragmatic breathing. And if you feel like you have to go to mouth breathing, just cut your level a bit. Just drop the intensity down a bit. Go a little bit slower, rather maintain the nasal breathing. Because then over time, you'll train yourself to be able to do what you did while you're mouth breathing. You'll be able to do it easily while you're nasal breathing. It just takes a little bit of time to adjust. It took me about 3 months to really get into, like, I could do it when I was playing squash. And once you crack it, it's like walking's much easier because walking is rhythmical.
Yeah.
It's like get into a pattern and just observe your breath. Use the walk. I'm really going to be conscious of my breath, and I'm just going to breathe in and out through my nose. And that's going to be the anchor of the walk. I'm just going to stay in that nice pattern. That'll put you in the present moment. Your mind goes into an alpha state, and your whole experience will be a very flowing one. Far more so than the mouth breathing. But try it out and let me know.
Yeah, will do.
So that diaphragmatic breathing, that simple diaphragmatic breath, is the foundational breath. That's how you should be breathing all the time. Nice, deep, slow, the stomach going out, stomach coming in, and that's just your default pattern. Quite slow. Once you get into the habit of it, you shouldn't be needing to breathe more than 10 or 12 breaths a minute. So inhale, exhale. So just get into the habit of observing your breath. When you're sitting, when you're walking, when you're driving, when you're cooking, whatever, just bring some awareness into the breath, notice. And it's very calming. It just keeps you anchored in the present moment, as well as being functionally, it's the best way to breathe. Okay, so any more questions on that, Kim? I think Kim's asleep. Are you asleep?
I'm just listening to you with my eyes closed.
Okay.
But yeah, I did struggle. I sometimes just had to, like, I couldn't hold my breath the whole time for some of the time.
Yeah. So then you have to exhale sooner.
Mm.
Yeah. So, wherever you are, that's where you are, and just practice it on your own. I've sent you recordings. I'm sending you another one of this whole session. So if you want to practice it on your own and just do your own timings. So if you go, okay, well, I can hold 20 seconds. Make sure, just try and get it smooth. The main thing is to get the whole thing in a nice rhythm and smooth. So you're not going, oh, I really need to,
Yeah.
collapse. I'm exaggerating, but you know, that kind of,
Sometimes feel a bit like that.
yeah. So you want to do it at a level where you can do it nice and smoothly. Maybe that means you only hold it for 10 seconds or 15 seconds.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then it's nice and smooth from the inhale into the exhale. Then the pause between the exhale and the inhale is nice and smooth. Then you inhale, it's not like you break the form. You're able to stay in that same form, nice and comfortable. You breathe, and you just do 3 inhales and exhales in a nice sort of smooth way. And depending on how long you're holding for, that should take you 5 or 10 minutes. So it's a little, practice you can do. And you'll get better at it the more you practice it. And I think if you find it difficult, that there's definitely a benefit in persevering with this and getting better at it, because you'll find it's going to help you spiritually as well. You're going to break through some barriers. It's all because mind and body are tied in. This is what the yogis understood. They said, well, how do we train our minds? How do we start reconditioning and reprogramming our minds? And they went, well, look, okay, this breath thing is so fundamental to our experience as human beings. Maybe this is a key. Maybe through the breath, we can start to control our minds. And that's the basis of all the yogic sciences. Breath control is mind control. So the pranayama, which means breath control, is a foundational practice in yoga. There's 8 limbs of yoga. Pranayama is one of them. So you start to control the breath, you can start to control your mind. No control of your breath, probably no control of your mind. Mind's all over the shop. So it's very hard to start training your mind directly. Right? You go, don't think of a pink elephant, for instance. Well, what do you think of? A pink elephant. Now, the mind is tricky. It's this monkey mind wanting to go all over the shop. So they figured out that one of the easiest ways of training the mind is start with the breath. Start training the mind to focus on the breath. Now there's a single point of focus, isn't it? Now the mind starts to come into focus, which then leads you into meditation. So that's why they had asana. They had the first 4 limbs of yoga already preparation for meditation. You have yama and niyama, which are observances. Like you're going to be, you're not going to steal, you're not going to treat other people badly. You're going to observe, personal hygiene, cleanliness, just kind of getting some of the basics right. Laying the foundations for the higher order kind of practices. And then asana and pranayama. Asana is the posture. So now a lot of in yoga, it's you're doing a posture, whether that's upward dog or downward dog or some, but actually it's just, the foundational posture is simply to sit. There's hundreds of ways of sitting in a meditation posture so that you're set up for your meditation. See? So asanas, okay, that's why I say, get yourself set, get into the posture, back straight, cup your hands in your lap. That's a posture, that's asana. And then you go into pranayama, which is now starting to control the breath. So that's the start of any meditation. Start working with the breath control. Now you're starting to focus the mind through the breath, aren't you? So you just keep focusing on the breath, and now if you focus on the breath, that's going to take you more deeply into. They have dharana, dhyana. They have pratyahara, which is the 5th one. That's withdrawal of the senses. So by focusing your mind just on the breath and you close your eyes, you're withdrawing the senses from the world, aren't you? You're going within. So that's the start of meditation. Then you have dharana and dhyana. So dharana is a focused, concentrated meditation style. So like, let's say you just focus on your breath. We do the breath watching. I'd say focus just on your nostrils, what's going on in and out through the nose. Focus on this area just below the nose. That's focused concentration. That's dharana. Okay? Just bringing your mind into single pointed concentration, which is calming for the mind. Starts to focus, instead of mind being all over the shop. Okay, there's a single point of focus now. And from that, you can then lead into dhyana, which is a much deeper, more contemplative kind of meditation, where you go deeply into this meditative state. there's still some awareness, but really the mind is quite clear and calm and empty. So that's why we start with the breath work. We do some power breathing. You let go, get you focusing on the nose, the sensations in the nostril, this area just below it, and then we get into 10-15 minutes into a longer meditation. Then we start the reading, because now you're in this deeper contemplative state, and it's just kind of coming in, and there's it's a contemplative kind of meditation. So if you're reading something in that state, you can absorb it at a deeper level. And so you can see there's a design to this. It's all based on this yogic science, which has been proven to work over thousands of years. And then the final one, number 8, is samadhi, which is that state of enlightenment where you're just in the oneness, and there's no other thought, it's just pure oneness, which is where all this leads to. That's not really a practice, that's something that just happens. But samadhi, interestingly, also means sameness. So it's a sameness of your perception. So you're seeing everything the same. You notice in all the meditations, when we come out, I go, okay, look at everything, notice it, observe it, and it's exactly the same. Your state of mind is exactly the same. There's no difference, irrespective of whatever you're observing. So that's training your mind for samadhi. Okay, it's the sameness of perception. I perceive everything the same way because my underlying awareness is the same. So I'm no longer in the monkey mind that's influenced by the external world. Like, well, now I feel okay, now I don't. Now I'm thinking that, now I'm thinking this, jumping around. It's like, no, it doesn't matter what I perceive. I have the same awareness. That's the enlightened samadhi state that all of this leads to. That's literally enlightenment in action. So I hope that gives a bit of background on some of the practices and like why we do them. And there's a very ancient science behind this, the yogic science, and all I've done is combined it with this with the Course in Miracles, because the Course in Miracles is non-dual. So Advaita Vedanta is non-dual. So it's the same teaching. Why not incorporate some of these ancient practices that can really help you to know it more experientially, to understand it more experientially. Okay, so any questions on the power breathing? I think you can probably all do it on your own, but I have sent you in the course, there were a couple of breath breaks just on power breathing, and I'm going to send you this one because I've just recorded the power breathing session in a recording, so you can use that as well. And I'm actually working on something for a guy I'm coaching, trader. So I'll send it out. It's designed specifically for him, but I'll guide you through this. I'll put some backing tracks to it. Okay, so the alternate nostril breathing. Should we do a bit of that? Any questions so far? No? Okay.
Nothing. Wow.
So the alternate nostril breathing, it's the same idea, except you're just breathing through one nostril at a time. So we'll do 6 breaths. So it's inhale through the left, exhale through the right, hold, inhale through the right, exhale through the left. Okay? That's one set. We'll do 3 sets like that. So it's 6 breaths, 3 sets of 2. Inhale left, out through the right, inhale through the right, out through the left. Same idea. You lock and hold. You do the triple lock. Is everyone getting those locks going?
Yeah.
Yeah. Able to just. So again, that's mind training. You're just starting to focus in and be able to okay, I can just clench the sphincter muscle. I can lock that, and it tends to lock the energy in. These are energy locks. So then you raise the energy up the spine. Do you feel that? Everyone feel some kind of energy up the spine? No. John's shaking his head. Okay. Maybe it can take some time. So if you keep doing it, you'll feel it. Sue, you said you were feeling it.
Well, I said I felt very warm in my body.
Yes.
I don't necessarily feel the energy going up my
spine. Yeah. Yeah, well, practice, because as you start to unlock that channel, it'll start to happen spontaneously. It'll just like, because you're unblocking that channel. And energetically, if you understand your body's an energy system, you've got these energy centers or chakras. As you start to do this, you raise the energy up, you are facilitating a release of energy. So a lot of your mental blockages in the subconscious mind, those then play out on the energetic level in terms of your chakras, your energy centers being blocked, and it's not flowing very nicely. They're supposed to be vortices of energy kind of spinning. And I believe that's what fuels our body. We are almost pulling divine energy through these vortexes, these energy vortices, into the physical body to animate it. It's not an outside-in process. Some people think of the energies coming from the outside in. It's actually inside out. So now those energy centers are spinning more. That life energy that fuels the entire body is coming through in an unblocked way. And that's part of the unblocking process. Then you start to find the beliefs that go along with that start to get released at the same time. So it's working multidimensionally. You're working with your mind. So there's mind training going on if you're using the breath breaks and the workbook lesson, but you also energetically starting to release some of those energy blocks at the same time by doing this kind of practice. So it's all kind of the synergy of it is powerful. So as you go, if you do this and you practice this, you'll find energy starting to more warmth, more tingling, more heat, and you might actually feel like a thread of energy running up your spine as you start to allow that Kundalini energy to flow. But that can take years, so just be patient with it. And by practicing the breath breaks, and as we go a bit more into the program, I'm going to start to get more recorded meditations, so longer meditations. It's in every meditation that I do. If you're just practicing, you follow the guidance, you're going to be doing the breath work, you'll be doing some power breathing. It's automatic. You're practicing it every day. So it just happens by default. You don't necessarily have to do power breathing as another practice, but you can if you want. You can also maybe one morning say, let's do some power breathing for 10 or 15 minutes. Why not? Just to kind of mix things up a bit. It's also a great preparation for exercise. So you could use it as, okay, we're going for a walk. Why don't we do some power breathing, warm up our respiratory system, start getting ourselves in the zone, and then we go out for our walk. That's another way you can use it. So just find a way to flow with it. Okay, so let's do the alternate nostril then. So Kim. It's like, wake. Dropping off there. It's been a long week. Okay, so same form, but this time you're just going to block one nostril. So what I'd recommend doing is taking your right hand, putting your thumb on the right nostril. Okay, so just the opposite of what I'm showing you, but I don't want to confuse you by doing left hand. It's going to look like that to you. That's what some, like in yoga, they'll but I'm just going to do it the right nostril. Okay, so you block the right nostril with the thumb. You put the index finger on your third eye over there, and you just pivot around that. So that's to block the right nostril. If you need to block the left nostril, you just bring in the middle finger and you block the left nostril, keeping the index finger there. So right nostril block with the thumb, left nostril you block with the index finger. Really simple. And just keep your hand there, because that'll also help you to remember what phase of it you're on, because you can forget. So the hand movements will help you with it. Okay, so let's start. Again, back nice and straight. Block the right nostril. Your thumb, index finger on the third eye. Close your eyes. Feet shoulder width apart. Just have your one hand open in your lap. on one of your thighs. And just breathe in through your left nostril. Okay, notice how the stomach rises, lock the energy in, clench your sphincter muscle. Second phase of the breath into the heart center. Feel the energy rising up the spine maybe. Squeeze your abdominal muscles in and down to lock the energy in. And final sip of air. Third phase of the breath into the upper chest, almost into the head. You feel like you're drawing the energy into the crown of your head. Wave of energy rising up the spine. So put your chin forward on your chest. Keep those other locks going and just hold for the next 20 seconds or so. Find some stillness in the intensity. Start finding some calmness. If you notice any thoughts arising, you just observe them. Imagine they're like cloud patterns. And you're just going to release them, blow them away with the breeze of your breath. So put your middle finger on the left nostril, release the locks, chin level, exhale out through your nose. The right nostril, as you block the left one, just exhaling out, a nice smooth flow. The airflow out of your right nostril over about 10 seconds. Feel the energy subsiding from the crown of your head down, front channel of your body. And at the bottom of the exhale, pull the lower stomach sharply into the spine. That expels the last remaining air out. So you're completely empty. Create a bit of a vacuum, and then you just pause and you hold the breath. Ultimately, you want to try and hold it for 30 seconds as well, but if you're struggling with that, just hold it for as long as you can. Push into the discomfort zone a little bit, and then keeping your left nostril blocked with your middle finger, breathe in through the right nostril. So breathe in through the right. Okay, nice smooth inhale. Clench the sphincter muscle. It's the first phase of the breath. To the heart center. Second phase of the breath, clench the abdominal muscles, squeeze them in and down. Keep the root lock in place. Third phase of the breath into the upper chest and the head. So that's a maximal inhale breath. Just pause at the top of the inhale. Chin forward. So you lock the neck. So you might feel some heat, some pressure in your head. It's all normal. Keep the back straight, keep the locks engaged for another 20 seconds. Finding some stillness in the intensity. Any thoughts, just notice them, observe them. Imagine they're like cloud patterns, and you're just blowing them away with the breeze of your breath. So keep the right nostril blocked and exhale out through the left. Release all the locks, chin level. Exhale the airflow out of the left nostril smoothly. The bottom of the exhale. Pull the lower stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. Pause at the bottom of the exhale. Okay, and hold the breath briefly. Try and find some stillness. Hold it for as long as you can. Smile. And then breathing in again through the left nostril. Breathing in through the left nostril. Notice the air flowing in through that nostril. Clench the sphincter muscle. Second phase of the breath into the heart center. Squeeze the abdominal muscles in and down. Third phase of the breath. Feel the energy rising up into the crown of your head. So it's a maximal inhale breath. Another sip of air in at the top. Chin forward. Keep the locks engaged. Keep your spine straight. And just hold it for another 10 seconds, finding some stillness, some peace in the stillness. And can't hold it anymore. Switch. So lock the left nostril with your middle finger, and you're going to exhale out through your right nostril. Exhaling out through the right, the airflow out of the nostril. Nice and smoothly. Feel the energy subsiding back down, front channel of your body. Going to rest in your lower stomach and your groin. Pull the lower stomach into the spine, sharply expel the last remaining air out. Pause here. Hold the breath briefly. And move smoothly into the next inhale through the right nostril. Chin level, keep your chin level. Breathing in through the right. Do the triple lock. You're familiar with that now. So first phase of the breath into the stomach. Lock the sphincter muscle, clench the sphincter muscle. Raise the pelvic floor. Second phase into the heart center. Squeeze the abdominal muscles in and down. Third phase into the upper chest and the head. Chin forward on the chest. Keep those locks engaged as you hold the breath. Finding some stillness in the intensity. Just notice, observe any thoughts, any emotions going on. But there's a part of your mind that's equanimous, that is not affected by them. It's above the battleground, so to speak, to use coarse language. So if you feel like you need to let go of anything, any of those thoughts or emotions, just block the right nostril, chin level, release the locks, and exhale out through the left. Over about 10 seconds. So it's a nice, smooth, flowing exhale out through the left nostril, the airflow out. Notice the chest and the stomach suck back in. Coming to rest. Energy rests in your lower stomach, your spine. Pull the lower stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out so you're completely empty. Pause here for a few moments in the stillness. These little gaps between your breaths are little portals to eternity. In the stillness, you can really start to feel this other dimension arising in your mind. And last set, so breathe in through the left nostril, keep the right nostril blocked, breathe in. Just do this in one smooth flowing. So instead of phasing it, you just move smoothly from the one and phase into the other. So you breathe into your stomach, then into the chest, then into the upper chest and the head. Do the triple lock simultaneously. Clench the sphincter muscle, squeeze the abdominal muscles in and down, chin forward, and you just lock and hold. So as you get better at this, you can do it in one smooth flow. Just broken it down into stages to help you, because there's a lock involved with each stage. But once you get good at it, you breathe in, you do the lock simultaneously, you breathe in, you hold. It's all coming into this idea of a smooth flow, integrated flow. So hold the breath for a little bit longer, finding some stillness in the intensity. Use the time just to observe your thoughts and your emotions. Obviously, when you're practicing a breath break, you can practice the actual one training lesson for today. God is my source. He goes everywhere with me. So exhale, block the left nostril, blowing the air out through the right nostril. Nice smooth flow. Exhaling. At the bottom of the exhale, do a little pull the lower stomach into the spine sharply to expel the last remaining air out. Just pause here. In the stillness and the silence. And breathe in again. Keep the left nostril blocked, in through the right nostril. Again, a nice smooth flow into the lower stomach, into the chest, the middle chest, the upper chest. Clench the sphincter muscles, squeeze the abdominal muscles. Final sip of air into the head, chin forward on the chest, keep the back straight, keep the locks engaged. And just hold it for as long as you can. It's the last one, so in your own time. See if you can hold it for a little bit longer than 30 seconds. And maintain equanimity. So it doesn't matter what's going on, whatever thoughts and emotions you're feeling, doesn't matter. Just able to rise above them, above the battleground. See if you can hold it for another 20 seconds or so. Even though there's intensity, you can connect with the stillness. In the eye of the storm, in the middle of the intensity, there's still the ability to be calm. And when you can't hold it any longer, you release the locks, chin level, block the right nostril out through the left. Exhale out the left nostril, nice and smoothly. The bottom of the exhale, pull the lower stomach into the spine. Expel it all out. Just rest here for a few moments. In the peace and the stillness as you hold your breath, the bottom of the exhale. And then just breathing in and out normally through both nostrils a few times, just to normalize. Observe your state of mind at the end of the session, just noticing how you're feeling. And you should be feeling calmer, clearer, lighter, but there's also an awareness. Power breathing can put you into very present moment awareness. So it's actually a great technique to help you to be calm but focused in anything you're doing. So if you need that state of calm but energized focus, then power breathing is a great technique to do before any activity where you need to be in that state. Okay, so that's six breaths, 3 sets. So a nice power breathing workout is you do the 3 power breaths through both nostrils, and then you go straight into the alternate nostril we've just done, 6 breaths. So it's in through the nose, in through the left, out through the right, in through the right, out through the left. It's 1 set. Do 3 sets like that. So you've done 9 breaths in total. You've done 9 breaths if you've kept the form of it over maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So there's a lot of breath holding going on there. You're starting to get into that intermittent hypoxia, this is called, a technical term.
Could you say that again, John? The sequence?
Yeah. So if you do the 3 power breaths through your nose to start with, so that's through both nostrils.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of a nice warm up. So that might take you 10 minutes. And then you do inhale through the left, exhale through the right. Pausing at each point between the inhale and the exhale, between the exhale and the inhale. Then inhale through the right, exhale through the left. So that's 1 set. Just repeat that. Inhale left, exhale right, inhale right, exhale left. Second set, inhale left, right, out through the right, inhale through the right, exhale through the left. And you just keep switching. So that's 9 breaths in total. And yeah, that's a nice little breathwork set you can do, as and when. As I said, what it tends to do, in my experience, is it tends to calm you. You're relaxed, but you're actually quite focused. You're not in that sort of, sometimes if you go into just watching your breath and you come out of a deep meditation, you can be quite drowsy. You don't really get that effect with this. You're actually quite alert. So if you need to be in that state, so I'm coaching this trader to do it. It's like, okay, you need to be calm with trading, but you need to be very focused because he's watching screens and he's got to make decisions and so on. So it's that state of mind, which is really flow. So use it, experiment with it. Works for you, use it. Don't have to do it every day, but maybe do it a couple of times a week. Do it before exercise. Do it as part of your morning routine. You can do it anytime, really. If you need, it's quite a nice pep up in this sort of late afternoon. If you're feeling a bit kind of low energy and tired, do some power breathing, and you'll find that gives you that definitely gives you an energy boost and just clears the mind. I mean, it's all a form of meditation. You're going to an altered state. But
I should imagine it's good for enabling sleep with my mouth closed as well.
Yeah, probably. Why do you struggle when you're sleeping? Do you open your mouth?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you breathe through your mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah, it should
Right.
help.
Then I get a dry mouth.
And you wake up in the middle of the night and you have to drink water. So that mouth breathing is not, it's not the optimal way of breathing.
No.
So if you can start doing more nasal breathing while you're awake and conscious, you might find that you just slip into that more easily when you're sleeping. Maybe there's a part that you don't feel like you're getting enough air. That's why you switch to mouth breathing. I don't know, but
it is. That is the reason. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe a bit of sleep apnea or something. So this will no doubt help. Just learning to breathe consciously through your nose. You make it your default pattern. So it's just happening. It's like a foundational system you put in place in your life.
Yeah.
So then on that you can build. You start to put in these foundations. You can now start to go into these higher reaches of samadhi and etc. And that's what the yogis understood. Put these things in place, and then you've got a good foundation, a solid foundation, to now start exploring what is beyond time and space. There's a great quote by Vimala Thakur. He says, well, if you can't get the basics of life, like breathing, diet, and exercise right, then these higher realms of what's beyond time and space will forever remain out of your reach. So it's like you put these foundational practices in, and then you just build on them. That's powerful. Now you've got these solid foundations. I mean, Jesus talked about that parable of the rock that I mentioned a few days ago in one of the emails. So it's this idea: you build your foundation on the rock, and now you build on that. It's built on a solid foundation. So now you can progress and you can grow on a solid foundation. Honestly, if you can't even do this, if you can't just do some basic breath work, you're probably not gonna be able to meditate properly and get into these deeper states. And this is just foundational. It's the baby steps. Get that right, and then so that's why starting with breath work is a good. So it's a very good foundation on which to build all of this stuff. So just do and be conscious of this whenever whatever you're doing. If you can just start being aware of your breath. Okay, how am I breathing now? Am I breathing through my mouth? Am I breathing through my nose? Am I breathing deeply? Am I breathing shallowly? And just try and engage in that nice kind of deep rhythmical diaphragmatic breathing. Whenever you become aware of it, it'll start to become your default mode, just like breathing that way normally. And what this does for your health and well-being, I think it's pretty extraordinary. So this is the engine room. It's like you're starting to breathe correctly, starts to repattern your whole system. Your entire system is it comes from your core. It's all about what's happening in the solar plexus sort of area. That's your power center and the heart. So if you're not breathing correctly, it sort of makes sense that you're not really in tune with that, and you're all over the shop. Start to breathe correctly. You start to come into alignment with your core. Now your power center, your heart center start opening. That is actually the intelligence centers here. The Heart Math Institute have done all the research about the heart, saying the heart is actually much more powerful than the brain as an intelligence center. So you actually want to entrain your entire system to be heart based. Now the brain is informed by the heart. So how do you do that? Well, one of the easiest ways is breathing. Start to get your breathing in a nice rhythmical flowing state. That starts to open up those energy centers and get you rooted here. So you might notice whenever you're stressed, what happens is your attention's all here, isn't it? Tends to go into the mind, and it's like a lot of like mind energy, and it feels, if you carry on in that state, you can feel really out of sorts and just like, oh, I just need a break. People like hold their heads, and because it's too much mind energy, too much of the energy is up here, and so this just drops it down into the heart center. Go like, okay, have your energy center here, and now the brain, this is also an energy center. This is being informed by the heart center. So it's radiating out from your heart, and your mind is entrained by your heart. That's where we want to go, rather than it's all the mind energy and the heart is blocked and you're not really listening to that. It's all happening here. And they say, get out of your head. This is the idea. Get out of your head and actually start getting into these other energy centers in your body, which are actually very powerful. So the breath work will help you with that as well. Okay, makes sense. Any other questions, comments?
So the power breathing is what we first did, right?
Yeah.
With the locks. Yeah, okay.
With both nostrils. Alternate nostrils, just a variation. It's just you're doing the same thing with one nostril. That it seems to activate different hemispheres of the brain. Definitely gives you a bit of a different experience. So you breathe in through the left, apparently that's activating right hemisphere. Breathe in through the right, activating left hemisphere. It's supposed to help you become more whole-brained. So they talk that theory of left brain, right brain. Left brain's more mechanical, more mechanistic, analytical, and so on. Right brain's more intuitive. And actually, you want the two to be working together. That you're not dominant in one or the other. It's like this whole brain. So, and if you look at history, some of the most creative people who've had the most impact in the world, they are whole-brained. So they have great creativity, but they're also able to implement it and think analytically, and because you need both. If you're all whole brain, the whole brain, the right brain is like, hey, Chihuahua, I'm free floating, and I can't really get anything together. I can't focus my attention. So often those people like forget their keys everywhere. Just like, there's no timekeeping. They can't keep to a diary or schedule, because it's just all too right brain. And then, the left brain is all like analytical, mechanistic, right? That's someone who's maybe very time bound, very quite rigid. It's all about analysis, understanding rationally, but not necessarily being able to access their creativity. So very mechanistic. And actually you want the two. They can start merging, then you can have creative ideas, and then you can go, but actually I can apply these in practice, and that's going to need a bit of left brain thinking. And I can do that seamlessly, and I can stay in flow. I can be in a nice flowing state. I'm not getting stressed by any of this. It's just flowing through me. So that's a very powerful state to be in. It's a state of mind that geniuses have reported, and these are the people who've changed the world. Well, it's just about knowing how to tap into that state. It's just an altered state, and these techniques help you do that. They orchestrate that state, so you can orchestrate peak performance. That's the idea. You don't have to. It's not someone specially gifted. You can, if you know how to get yourself into these states, then when you're in that state of mind, your peak self, your peak performer just unveils itself, and you start to be able to operate at a much higher level. So all of this stuff, although it takes time, it's really worth it, because it actually makes you more effective and more productive if you're operating in the world, which, for Kim, Karen, that's important. You're running businesses, you're working. John and Sue, you retired. Okay, it's not as imperative, but still, it's nice in whatever you're doing. You're still doing stuff. It's nice to be in flow and to be functioning at a high level, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and these kinds of techniques, and they're now starting to be discovered by athletes and business executives, and and going, wow, this stuff really works. This is now being written about by coaches and saying, wow, but it's been around for thousands of years. It's not like anything new. It's just taking some of this Eastern wisdom and applying it in our Western life, along with in our case, A Course in Miracles, to just really take it to another level. So if you do all of this, the synergy of all of this in a 1-year program, the idea is that's going to grow you way more than if you just did the workbook, for instance, of the course, as you'll know from your experience, John and Sue. Like the synergy of all of these things starts to awaken the mind, and it's working multidimensionally in a way that just one modality or one practice can't necessarily do that. It's multidimensional, so that you can come to the oneness. Multidimensional, so that you can have awareness of oneness. That's the paradox of it, isn't it? Okay. Any more comments or questions?
No. Very useful, thanks, John.
Yeah, so I just thought once a month we'll do like a breathwork sort of workshop like this, so that you can just kind of refresh on some of these basics, because it's easy to forget, and maybe just take it a bit deeper. I have sent you an instruction sheet, which has all of these techniques in them. Have you all got that? So it's got the power breathing, description of the power breathing. It's got the diaphragmatic breathing. It's got breathing in and out through your nose while you're exercising. It's all kind of documented in there.
Did that come on an email, John?
Yeah, it was on I think on my follow-up email I sent it.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh no.
So the one on the Tuesday or the Wednesday after the course, I think it's in there. It's an attachment. And I also sent it a while ago to the group, to the WhatsApp group.
I'll have to check.
I'll send it out again tomorrow.
Would you? Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'll attach it. So you can print that out, and you can use those instructions as a reference for the various techniques that we covered during the Art of Letting Go course. So you can use them as and when you choose. The next kind of phase is I want to do videos for each one, and actually create a breathwork course out of that. And then that'll just be part of so it'll be a separate course, but it'll be part of the Art of Letting Go course. Like, okay, it's just integrated. So when you're doing the breathwork, I'll send you the video and say, right, there's in the first week, we cover the breathwork. There's your video for today, which guides you through it. And obviously I do it in the live sessions as well. So join the live sessions. Okay, so I hope that was good. That's power breathing, and we did some diaphragmatic breathing and alternate nostril, and we also covered breathing. So just a little enhancement. If you're exercising, Sue and John and anyone else, if you're exercising, if you breathe in through your nose like this, and then you do a little the sighing sound. It's called the Ujjayi sound in yoga. If you've ever done yoga, they call it Ujjayi. So it's just you keep your mouth closed and you make a sighing sound as though you were fogging sunglasses, like that. It's also called Darth Vader breathing, because there's a Darth Vader character in Star Wars. Except you do that with your mouth closed. So it sounds like that. Can you hear? So just try it a couple of times. Breathe in. Okay, John, just one thing. What you got to be aware of, I'm noticing. Don't do this. Don't hunch up, because you create a lot of tension in your neck and shoulders as you do it. So you want to try and stay really relaxed in the neck and shoulders. And it's really just the stomach and the chest that are rising. So there's none of that going on, because that's going to create tension in your neck and shoulders, which actually blocks the energy from rising up. So it's counterproductive. So just try and stay like really relaxed there. So you breathe in, and then as you exhale, keep your mouth closed, out through the nose, and you make a little sighing sound as though you're fogging sunglasses. With your mouth closed. You get that?
I think so.
Okay, so try it with your mouth open first. Breathe in, then mouth open. Okay, so you got that. That's pretty easy to make that ha sound. And you should feel a little contraction in your diaphragm. Do you feel that?
Yeah.
Diaphragm tends to contract in. So the idea of the ujjayi sound is it contracts the diaphragm, which then expels the air out. So that you empty yourself, you empty your lungs completely. So you create a bit of a vacuum effect. And obviously in the presence of a vacuum, the air wants to now rush in. So then that helps you to take more air in on the inhale. So the exhale and the inhale are equally important. You really need to get both going in any proper breathwork practice, doing them correctly, because the one feeds into the other. And then so now try inhale, and then keep the mouth closed. Make the same ha sound, but keep your mouth closed. So it's like a sighing sound in the back of your throat. Yeah. Feel that, and you should feel a little contraction in your stomach muscles. Diaphragm just sucks back in. So what that does is it just expels more of the air out on the exhalation. The lungs empty themselves more fully, so you create a bit more of a vacuum effect, and then the air is ready to rush in on the next inhale. So it just makes the nasal breathing a little bit more efficient, which then, you know, in the exercise means that you're able to just maybe get that little bit extra. For performance athletes, I mean, it's a big thing. Get that little bit of edge, a little bit of extra endurance. You're not getting as tired. That can make a difference in your performance. A big difference. In the last, you know, team sports or anything, usually it's the last little bit, the last 20 minutes of the game, for instance, are where you know, that kicks in. And you often see games are won or lost there. I mean, yesterday, I don't know if you watched the rugby yesterday, John, but the last 20 minutes were pretty key. South Africa just pulled away, and maybe that had something to do. They were certainly much more in flow. Maybe they didn't get as tired, so, you know, they were able to sustain that performance. So try using this in your you know, in your exercise, whatever you do. If you're walking, sort of slow rhythmical exercise is easiest. So walking is ideal. If you want to run, you want to cycle, you want to jog, you can still do it. Just nice, deep, slow rhythmical breaths. You focus on this ujjayi breath, the inhale, the exhale, and you make the exercise session into a moving meditation. That's the idea. So the whole thing is a moving meditation guided by the breath. You should get into an alpha state. It should be a really kind of calming, energizing experience. And that's really the purpose of it. Exercise should be a break for the mind and the body. It shouldn't be something that you feel like really stressed about. Oh, now I've got to do my workout. Oh, can't stand going to gym. But yeah, I better do it because I need to get my summer body on. That's all ego, isn't it? It's like, no, you should do it because you enjoy it. It's actually it's a really enjoyable process. And it's energizing for the mind and the body. And you come away from your exercise feeling re-energized rather than fatigued, even if you were doing it at quite a high level. So Kim, Karen, I don't know if you go to gym, whatever exercise you're doing, just try and breathe this way, and you'll find that it really, you know, takes your exercise to a different level. You might need to just to cut your level a bit. So initially, you'll start off, and, you know, you always start off with a bit of a warm-up. So don't go straight into intense exercise. So it's just, you know, warming up. So slow walk, move it into a slow jog or cycling. Just up the intensity slowly over sort of 5 minutes is sort of the lead in. Then over about 10 minutes, you gradually increase the intensity, maintain that breathing. And if you use a heart rate monitor, take it to about between 130 and 140 beats a minute is your kind of performance zone. Beyond that, you're going to have to start probably breathing through your mouth. So you keep it in that nice zone. You just keep your level at whatever the intensity is that is in that 130 to 140 beats a minute. And it should be really comfortable. You should be able to go in that performance zone for half an hour easily. You don't really get fatigued because your heart rate's not going up. So give it a try. I mean, I found it extremely powerful. It actually completely changed my squash career. It's like in the middle of my squash career, I was like, wow, like why didn't I know this before? So now my fitness was not based on this idea of stress recover. Like, you know, I've got to push my body, then I've got to rest, recover, and then the body gets stronger. That's sort of traditional kind of Western psychology of training. My fitness was based on the efficiency of my breathing. So even if I wasn't training that hard, it was actually primarily, okay, I just need to be breathing like this and using my body efficiently. And so you need to train less. Don't need to do as much work. You don't fatigue the body as much. You're fresher. It just makes so much more sense. So it's a whole different way of thinking about exercise. So if you're interested, there's a book called Body, Mind, and Sport. This is where I got it all from. It's written by a guy called John Douillard. And he got into Ayurvedic medicine. He's still very much out there. He's got a website. And he was a triathlete. He was doing it, you know, conventionally. Then he found he'd get very fatigued. He'd get injured a lot. And then he got into, you know, Ayurveda, which is based on yoga. And he said, wow, this stuff's amazing. If you start breathing like this while you exercise, there it is. I put it in the chat. You can get that on Amazon, I think. And he goes into some of the Ayurvedic teachings as well, diet as well. So it's about diet and about your breathing. I discarded the diet stuff. I thought I found a better one. The Ayurvedic idea didn't work that well for me, so I use the zone diet. I may as well put that in the chat as well. So I've been on that for about 25 years. Zone by a guy called Barry Sears. And there's a couple of follow-ups to that, but the original one was written in the early 90s. So like these foundations, you get these foundations in place, it's really going to help everything, your health, your well-being, and your spiritual practice. If you start getting these foundations in place. So by all means, read the books and you know, just integrate it into your life. We all need to eat, we all need to exercise, so you may as well do it, you know, more optimally. Okay, so any questions, any comments? Oh,
Sorry.
That's been really helpful.
Interesting. Yawning, actually, yawning is a way of releasing energy. It's actually one of the ways that we kind of relax. So if you, actually, it's relaxing, isn't it? Right. So it's instead of suppressing it, oh, you know, because we're taught that's rude, you shouldn't open your mouth or whatever. It's like actually you can use a good yawn just to relax. It's a way of relaxing into that kind of parasympathetic, activating the parasympathetic nervous system, or just sighing. You go, you know, we taught in our Western side, oh, this is rude, you can't sigh because people will take it wrong. But actually, it's very relaxing, isn't it? Just try a sigh. And you just kind of like let it all go, and you just feel like, okay, I'm at peace. So we've got all these physiological mechanisms that we're not really using to help us to change our state. Just a sigh, a yawn, and we suppress all these things. We go, well, no, we can't do that. But you can, and actually they're there for a reason. They really can help. You might just, want to choose your moments, pick your moments when you do it. Because like, oh, well, that's really rude. Just yawned in my face. And you say, no, I'm just altering my state. It's fine. I just felt like I needed to just shift my state a bit. So don't take offense. But yeah, it's about using our bodies intelligently, using all these things we have, the breath and food we have to eat, just using it more optimally and more intelligently to give ourselves a better quality of life, better quality of experience. And that's all spiritual. That's all taking you in the direction of the oneness of the mind. Okay, so I think that's a breathwork section. I thought we can do some practice, some reading and practice if you want of the text. If you want to stay, or happy to end the session, because we have been going for 2.5 hours nearly now. So it's up to you. Kim, you said you had to go at about 3:30.
Yeah.
If you need to go, that's fine. Karen said she was resting, but let's see if we can bring her on. If you want to stay, then just stay around. John and Sue?
Stay for a while.
Yeah, okay. All right, so let's move into the third phase of this.
Enjoy.
Okay.
Okay. See you in a week, Kim.
Doing the text, right? Not
Sorry?
doing a text.
Doing a test.
Text.
The text, yes, yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, we'll look at the workbook lesson as well. So,
Okay.
yeah. I'll
All
send
right.
you the recording now. I'm gonna...
Enjoy, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for joining. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, so and Corin's gone as well. So let's I'm going to share my screen. We'll go into a little bit of okay. All right. Okay, so let's have a little read of this, I think, and then we'll go into reading the text, and can finish off with a bit of a med. Okay, so John, if you can read first paragraph and the main idea.
God is my source. I cannot see apart from him. Perception is not an attribute of God. His is the realm of knowledge. Yet he has created the Holy Spirit as the mediator between perception and knowledge. Without this link with God, perception would have replaced knowledge forever in your mind. With this link with God, perception will become so changed and purified that it will lead to knowledge. That its function as the Holy Spirit sees it. That is its function as the Holy Spirit sees it. Therefore, that is its function in truth.
Okay.
I just like the whole concept that he created the Holy Spirit as the mediator between perception and knowledge.
Yeah, it's quite a nice way of thinking about it. Mediator. Without this link with God, perception would have replaced knowledge forever in your mind.
Yeah.
Perception will become so changed and purified that it will lead to knowledge. And that's the whole mind training. That's what Jesus is trying to train us to do with all of these exercises and the texts, transforming our perception so that our perception is as close to knowledge, which is just the perfect oneness, as possible. So there's really there's very little difference by the end of our life here. We're so close to knowledge that God takes the final step. The body is laid aside and our mind is back in oneness. and we can just accept that that is our home, that's our true reality, and there's absolutely no need to create more separation and return, which sort of brings us back to where we started the session, the question about, well, returning. The only reason why you come back is because you still believe in separation. And you still believe in the domain of perception rather than knowledge.
Mm.
Okay, shall we move on to number 2? Sue, if you can read that for us.
In God, you cannot see. Perception has no function in God and does not exist. Yet in salvation, which is the undoing of what never was, perception has a mighty purpose. Made by the Son of God for an unholy purpose, it must become the means for the restoration of his holiness to his awareness. Perception has no meaning, yet does the Holy Spirit give it a meaning very close to God's. Healed perception becomes the means by which the Son of God forgives his brother and thus forgives himself.
Okay.
I don't understand what it means when it says, in God you cannot see.
He's referring to seeing as we think of seeing, perception. See, so who's seeing? Subject, object, perception. I see this, right? That's our idea of seeing, isn't it?
Hmm.
And in God, you cannot see. There's nothing to see. There's nothing else to see, you see.
Yeah.
You'll talk about true vision, but actually what he's referring to with true vision is seeing beyond, is seeing the formless essence that's underlying everything. That's true vision. It's not seeing as it's with the body's eyes. It's not seeing in the way we think of seeing. So that's how he's using that in that context. You cannot see as you think seeing is within the body's framework. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
And then he goes, perception has no function in God.
Mm.
It does not exist. Because we're in a perceptual world here. Everything's perception. You've got to see that clearly. It's all my perception. I have thoughts, I have emotions. What's it based on? It's based on perception. It's based on me, subject, viewing something object and having some kind of judgment of it.
Mm.
Subject, object split. There's separation inherent in that. There's my perception that now seems to create some kind of reality for me, doesn't it? But in God, that doesn't exist.
Mm.
Yet it has a mighty purpose. So perception has a mighty purpose, which is the reinterpretation of the world through your perception for the restoration of your holiness to your awareness. And so the Holy Spirit gives it a meaning. Perception has no meaning in itself, but the Holy Spirit gives it a meaning because the Holy Spirit says, well, this is the way out. This is how you're going to get back to God. So it has a meaning in those terms, in that context, no other meaning. So you're not trying to make perception real. You're not trying to justify this world and give it a meaning in and of itself. You're saying that the only meaning it has is the Holy Spirit's meaning, which he says in the previous one. That is its function and truth. There is no other function. This is it. Forgiveness, as he calls it. To forgive your brother and thus forgive yourself. Well, what does that mean? It means you are letting go of your negative thoughts and emotions about your brothers. That's what that means. Which means that you forgive yourself. Well, if you've got no more negative thoughts and emotions, you've let it go, then you're free. There's no more ego because it's simply made out of those negative thoughts and emotions. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's why you can't, I mean, to come back to that conversation I had with that chap that I mentioned to both of you, you can't really fudge this. As soon as you go, perception has a purpose of itself and it has value of itself, what have you just done? You just justified it as some kind of separate reality, haven't you?
Mm.
And there's the split. Okay, well, now you've got perception on the one hand, and you've got truth on the other, and they seem to contradict. As long as you want to keep believing in the perceptual world as a reality, you will keep having it. You'll keep experiencing it, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, because that's what your mind says it wants. So the mind makes up its own reality, and we now live in that. The only way out is the Holy Spirit's reinterpretation of this dream world that we made, saying it has no meaning in itself, but that doesn't mean that you cannot experience a meaningful life while you're here, which is where I think that chap got a bit lost. So no, actually you can have a very meaningful life if you reinterpret it all through the Holy Spirit, because your life, the only purpose of it is to wake up. Your life is about training your mind to reinterpret the dream so that you can fully awaken, and that there's a mighty purpose in that. And you can be awakening progressively and systematically as you journey through life. Now there's a sense of growth, there's a sense of moving somewhere, although you're actually just going back to where you always were. But it's not like you're relying on the form to give you the meaning, you see. It's actually the undoing of the form that's giving you the meaning.
Mm.
So does that make sense? It's subtle, but it's very distinct, which is why you can't really merge A Course in Miracles with other dualistic teachings. It doesn't really work. He's saying there's only one meaning. There's only one interpretation of this so-called world that makes any sense, and that's the Holy Spirit. And you cannot see apart from God because you cannot be apart from God. Whatever you do in Him, because whatever you think with His mind. Your vision is real, and it is real to the extent to which it shares the Holy Spirit's purpose. And you cannot see apart from God. Yeah, it's the same vision is only real to the extent to which it shares the Holy Spirit's purpose. So whatever you see, if you see it truly with true vision, then you see it with the Holy Spirit. So you don't make the form real. You're willing to overlook the form and see the essence beyond it. So you overlook all errors, you forgive them, and you find the truth in everything. Even in the most grotesque appearances of this world, you can still see the truth. You can still have vision. Okay, makes sense?
Mm.
Right, so let's do a little, see how long this section is. Yeah, okay, so what we're going to do is read this, and then we'll do a meditation on both of them to close it out. Okay, so the last step. We talked about this the other day, John, so maybe we can have a little revisit of it. Do you want to read paragraph 1?
Yeah.
First?
The last step. The creative power of God and His creations is limitless, but they are not in reciprocal relationship. You communicate fully with God as He does with you. This is an ongoing process in which you share, and because you share it, you are inspired to create like God. Yet in creation, you are not in reciprocal relation to God, since He created you, but you did not create Him. I have already told you that only in this respect your creative power differs from His. Even in this world, there is a parallel. Parents give birth to children but children do not give birth to parents. They do, however, give birth to their children, and thus give birth as their parents do.
Okay. Anything stand out for you?
I'm trying to remember in what context we were reading this the other day, actually. Yeah.
I think you read just paragraph 2, I think.
Oh, yes, it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Any comments on this paragraph? Questions? It was about the extension you were talking about. So
that was it. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The mind, creation outwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the idea is you've got this source, this mind that is created by God, and this then extends outwards.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because there must be a source from which it all comes.
Mm.
And then he clarified. Well, maybe Sue, read paragraph 2 for us. You created God, and He created you.
If you created God and He created you, the kingdom could not increase through its own creative thought. Creation would therefore be limited, and you would not be co-creator with God. As God's creative thought proceeds from Him to you, so must your creative thought proceed from you to your creations. Only in this way can all creative power extend outward. God's accomplishments are not yours, but yours are like His. He created the sonship, and you increase it. You have the power to add to the kingdom, though not to add to the creator of the kingdom. You claim this power when you become vigilant only for God and His kingdom. By accepting this power as yours, you have learned to remember what you are.
Okay. Makes sense. Any questions?
Yeah, my question the other day was around He created the sonship and you increase it. And because I was going down the line of we increase it is our contribution to being here.
Yeah. You increase it in the sense of your love, your peace, your joy, add to the experience of that, these divine states in the sonship.
That's it.
And so we're not increasing on the level of form, as in, more stuff. It's just experiencing these states more fully. And that's what he means by creation. Creation is a state of perfect love, peace, and joy.
And the more we contribute to that, the greater the whole is.
Yeah. So sonship, there's only really one mind. But if your mind is fragmented and seemingly separated, then the wholeness of the sonship can't be known because your mind is split off from it.
Yeah.
You play your part in that one-ment. When you're doing this, you're bringing your little fragment of the mind. It seems to be, your personality, your body, your life. You're bringing that into the oneness. That's the at-one-ment process. Back into the kingdom, as he calls it.
So someone
add to the kingdom and not to add to the creator of the kingdom.
So someone who lives in a permanent state of depression is not contributing to the well-being of
They're keeping themselves split off in this little separate self. They're miserable, and the whole sonship is impaired, because as long as they maintain that separation through the depression, the at-one-ment is blocked. It can't happen. One-ment means every mind has come back to an awareness of its oneness and experience true creation, which is love, peace, and joy. Depression is the opposite of that. So by they are holding the ego in place through their depression, although they probably wouldn't know that. But so the ego is controlling them, and they are part of the separate kingdom, which they then believe in and have identified with, and that keeps the true kingdom separate from them, out of their awareness. And well, that affects the whole. I mean, if you're in the company of a depressed person, it can be quite depressing. If you allow yourself to be affected by that, it's not an uplifting, happy energy. It tends to pull you down because their worldview is very negative. Whereas someone who's in the kingdom is just radiating love and light out. It's very inspiring. It's very uplifting to be in the presence of that, because it stimulates your own creative thought. You tend to feel, okay, anything's possible. I feel happier. I feel more peaceful, more connected, and there's a joining that happens. You can join in the Holy Spirit. You can join in the joy and the love and the peace. You can share those. You can't really share depression. Actually, that's kind of interesting. Right?
No.
A depressed person doesn't share their depression. The depression is theirs. It's like very insular, very. It's just me. I can't really share. It's just my depression.
But a very negative person can share their negativity.
Yeah, well, seemingly, but I think Jesus talks about this. Is it really a sharing, or actually it's just kind of infecting the mind, other people's minds, with this negativity, creating separation? Can you really share anger or depression? Because it separates us. Can you share anger? It's an interesting question. Suppose two people can get angry, but they get angry at each other, usually. So now there's a separation and there's conflict. Is that a sharing, or is that just separation? See?
Or can you can stimulate anger in others?
Yeah, you trigger it in them, but is that really a sharing?
No.
Well,
no, it's not.
how you want to look at it, but
Yeah.
you might share. So the ego, you might believe in the same thought system of anger, fear, hatred, and attack, but is that really a sharing if you both believe in the thought system but you're at odds with each other? Because that thought system can set you at polar opposites. You can want to attack and kill someone out of that thought system. So is that really sharing? You might share a thought system, but you actually hate the person.
Yeah.
There's no so the sharing of the ego's thought system actually just leads to more separation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas the sharing of the Holy Spirit's thought system leads to a genuine sharing of a thought system, of ideas, and of an experience of love, peace, and joy. That's the kingdom he's talking about. Okay, so you claim this power and you become vigilant only for God and his kingdom. I don't know if you read the last part of the last chapter, but that was the third part of the mind training that he was talking about.
Yeah.
Vigilant for God only for God and his kingdom. So he's just referring to that. So you can't be vigilant for two kingdoms. You can't be vigilant for the ego and its thought system of separation and be vigilant for God, for oneness, because they contradict each other totally.
Yeah.
You cannot have both realities. You must choose. which again, taking me back to that conversation with that chap. He said, I don't have to choose. I'm like, no, you do. To be sane, you have to choose. How can you have a belief in separation and a belief in oneness going on simultaneously in your mind and expect to be sane when those ideas contradict each other? I'm separate. No, I'm one. No, I'm one, but I'm separate at the same time. Hang on, that makes no sense. And then he goes, there's another school of non-duality. Right. So there's now two versions of oneness. It's bizarre, isn't it? You just look at it's crazy. How can there be two versions of oneness? Then oneness is no longer oneness. What you're believing in then is duality. Well, then it's not another school of non-duality. It's the ego. It's the dualistic thought system.
I think I've heard that. Where else?
Non-duality.
I think I've heard that somewhere else. I said that there's two schools of non-duality.
Yes, which is insane. Like, come on, how can you have two schools of oneness? Can you not see the evident contradiction?
Yeah.
Because the ego, even in these, in these high teachings, the ego doesn't want to accept the truth. So then someone goes, oh, no, I don't want to accept that. So I'm going to create my own school, and I'll call it a school of non-duality. But actually, I'm just believing in duality. It's not a school of non-duality at all. You're believing in masculine and feminine, and the illusion is real, and it's as real as it's like that's not non-dual. It's completely dualistic. So don't call it non-duality then. Just say, okay, well, yeah, I believe in the illusion then. But they don't want to say that, you see, because if I believe in an illusion, then that doesn't sound as good as I have a belief in another school of non-duality. It's more justified if you say, oh, well, I'm of the other school of Advaita. Sounds all kind of highfalutin. But actually, what are you believing in?
Yeah.
Crazy. But it just shows you how cunning the ego is, that it's going to try and hijack like the truth and devolve the truth into illusion. And that's happened in almost every spiritual teaching in every religion. There's a pure non-dual truth. That's the Vedas, Advaita Vedanta. Like the knowledge of not two, that's what it means, literally. The knowledge of not two. Okay, so from the knowledge of not two, people then take it and they devolve it into all these other forms that now make duality real. Well, now you've lost the knowledge of not two, haven't you? Because not two means there's only one. There's only one true reality. There's only one true God. And if you compromise that in any way, then you've lost the knowledge of you've lost non-dual knowledge. You're now in the duality of it again. So the course is pure non-dual. Then people say, oh, well, there's another interpretation of the course. Is there? Really? It's like, how do you see that? He's telling you over and over again, there's only God. And like, how do you then, it's like, how's there another interpretation? When he's saying to you over and over and over again, there's only God, and this is the only truth, and you must choose. I mean, he's telling you, you see in this text, over and over and over again, repeating the same theme. And yet people will still go, oh, well, I have another interpretation of the course. Okay. It's like the other interpretation of non-duality, isn't it? It's the same thing. So, yeah. Anyway, just some reflections on how cunning the ego is, because people don't want to accept this. If you don't want to accept that you actually have no separate existence and you want to maintain that, then you've got to find a way to maintain that, haven't you? You've got to create a belief system that allows the ego to maintain. Whereas this non-dual, like, okay, it's this or that and you must choose, there's no wiggle room for the ego. It's an all or nothing approach. You must choose completely against the ego. You must be vigilant against the ego, only for God and his kingdom. How much clearer is it? Only for that, only for oneness. That's where your salvation lies and nowhere else. You're not going to find it in some dualistic mishmash of ideas where you try and make the ego and the Holy Spirit real, both, and try and somehow reconcile them. It's never going to work. Okay, so does that give a bit more clarity on this second paragraph?
Yeah, it does.
So your creations belong in you as you belong in God. You are part of God as your sons are part of his sons. To create is to love. Love extends outward simply because it cannot be contained. Being limitless, it does not stop. It creates forever, but not in time. God's creations have always been because He has always been. Your creations have always been because you can create only as God creates. Eternity is yours because He created you eternal. Okay, anything stand out for you there?
I guess that eternity is yours because He created you eternal. I'm just going to go to the loop.
No problem. And to create is to love. So it's telling us exactly what creation is. And love simply extends outward because it cannot be contained. It wants to extend. And you can feel that in your mind, can't you? There's like an extension. There's something that wants to like extend out through you.
You can feel it in your heart too.
Yeah, it's more in the heart, honestly. But you know, we're talking about the whole mind. But in our bodily experience, we feel it there. So the other day you wanted to make that call. There was like a desire to extend, wasn't there? There's something in there that's like, okay, that's extension. And it's very, I mean, you can't measure it. It's not because it's not in the physical realm, but there's something happening on the mind level, isn't there? And so this is what he's talking about. Love just wants to extend outward. And how that shows up in this world is, okay, you can extend your love in practical form, in actions and words to other people. And that's the extension of love. That's how the extension of love happens here, gets translated into this reality. In the kingdom, it's all happening on the mind level. There's no action. There's no action or words required. But on this level, that's how we translate it. Are you going to say something?
Yeah, being limitless, it does not stop. Just keeps on extending. Limit to love.
Yeah, which is, again, the ego can't understand that. It's like, how can something keep on extending? Where's it going to end up? It can't conceive of anything without limits, you see. So he's using language to point us in that direction, which is why the language, I don't really get that. The language doesn't make sense, but he's pointing to ideas that are beyond the construct of language entirely. And your creations have always been because you can create only as God creates. So your creations are love. Feelings, thoughts of love, that's your creation. When you feel those feelings, you think those thoughts, then that's creation. Which is eternal, as he points out. Okay, so John, if you can read number 4 for us, please.
The ego, on the other hand, always demands reciprocal rights because it is competitive rather than loving. It is always willing to strike a bargain, but it cannot understand that to be like another means that no bargains are possible. To gain, you must give, not bargain. To bargain is to limit giving, and this is not God's will. To will with God is to create like Him. God does not limit His gifts in any way. You are His gifts, and so your gifts must be like His. Your gifts to the kingdom must be like His gifts to you.
Okay.
The word bargain is kind of bemusing me a bit, actually.
Okay.
It is always willing, the ego is always willing to strike a bargain. I mean, striking a bargain to me is reaching a deal that suits both parties, or Or it could mean compromise, which equals not a good solution for either.
You know, you think about how you know our experience here works in interactions. Business is an obvious one. It's like, okay, what can I get? What can I get out of this that's going to work for me? And it's kind of got to work for the other person as well. But I'm going to try and maximize my gain. The bargaining idea of the ego. I'm going to try and, okay, I understand the other person's got to get something, but I'm going to try and maximize my own gain. Right? Bar gain. I'm trying to gain. It's all about gain. It's the getting idea of the ego.
Yeah.
And so although we might come to an agreement, was it really done in a spirit of oneness, or was it like, okay, I want this, you want that, all right, we'll try and strike a bargain, and we'll try and, you know, find some kind of compromise where we both feel reasonably happy. But usually in a bargain, someone's dissatisfied.
Yeah.
If you've really got a bargain, you're like, wow, I've got such a great bargain there. Okay, well, that means someone has to have given more value to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you've taken from someone else. I've got a great bargain, but someone else has had to lose that apparent value.
Yeah.
You see, so that's what he's highlighting. It's this getting mechanism of the ego. Well, I need to get. I'm always willing to strike a bargain because it's about getting more for me. That works for the ego's thought system. But he's saying you must gain. To gain, you must give, not bargain. So give all to all.
Yeah.
How that plays out in form isn't always that obvious and that easy. But it's an attitude, I think, more than anything. So instead of like, what can I get out of this in any business or any interaction, any relationship? What can I get? It's no, what can I give? How can I really add value to this person? That's really the thought system. If I'm really coming from that idea, then okay, I'm in a giving mindset. That doesn't mean I don't get value from it, but the truth is, the more I give, the more value I will experience. Because it's working on another level, isn't it? It's not on the level of form. It's like, so I might give more, you know, services or goods or material stuff, but actually, if love is my true intention, then in that giving I receive, I feel filled up with the love, and it's radiating out through me, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I'm just giving, and there's none of that bargaining energy of the ego. And if it's done in that spirit, you know, there's no doubt that people will see that, they'll feel that, and then they'll, wow, that was amazing. You know, that this person, just the energy that I'm getting is amazing. And you know, so in a business context, then that builds good relationships. People are like, I don't know what it is, but like I really just get something from dealing with this person that I might not get from their competitors. And if you're in that flow of the giving, actually the universe gives back to you. The universe, the mind, now in that giving state, starts to program the quantum field in a different way. And so abundance starts coming in different ways that you couldn't have expected or anticipated. See, so actually it's not a zero-sum game. The ego says, no, well, if you give, then you've lost, so you can't do that. But if you start extending beyond those limits, then you can start activating, you know, the power of this giving and receiving, that can help you in so many ways that you couldn't have conceived of. That, you know, miracles can happen that you couldn't have conceived of. If you're in business, your business could grow. You could get new opportunities. You could get new clients. You could get all kinds of things that you didn't know were possible because you're in the mindset of giving rather than of getting.
Well, you don't mean in the context, for example, of you're selling something for £1,000, and okay, I'll give you this for £500.
Well, depending. I mean, that's situation specific. But you know, instead of going, okay, I'm gonna put a 500% markup on this and make £1,000, you might say, okay, well, I mean, okay, so take as a practical instance this course in this program I ran. right? There could have been a couple of ways I did this. I probably could have charged, whether people would have done it or not, I don't know. But actually, in terms of the value, I could have charged £197 easily. Would you agree? Could have said, okay,
Yeah.
it's 109 because you're getting daily live sessions. But I rather said, no, I don't want to put people off with potentially a high price, because that might be a barrier for some people. I don't think James would have done it, for instance, because he's unemployed. He said, basically, I used all the money I had. Okay, so you see, so I'm going, instead of what can I get? Okay, I've done this course and I want to get as much as possible. I'm like, no, I'd rather give this course to people, and yes, I'm going to get something from it, but I'd rather get less upfront. But if people do it and they get immersed in it, then they're likely to continue on with the process.
Yeah.
And then I'll make the ongoing process, instead of £50 a month, I'll make it £26 a month for an individual, which is, I think, pretty affordable, because then more people are likely to do it. Whereas I think I priced it at £197 and £49 a month, which I could probably justify in terms of the value I'm giving. I mean, if you look at the amount of time and the amount of sessions, and yeah, I could justify it if I was in a getting mindset. Yeah, well, I've done the work, I put this program together, that's justified. But then, is my energy right? Am I doing it from a giving mindset or from a getting mindset? You see? So I mean, that's just in my instance, like how it can play out in a business. And so I've set it at a pretty low level, because I'd rather have people coming in and doing this, because my intention is not primarily to make money. My intention is to help people. You see, so that's the difference.
Yeah.
So your whole business strategy and your pricing and etc. are going to be different depending on where you're coming from.
Yeah.
If it was just about money making, I might have gone, okay, well, no, I can't give away this all this value for nothing. But actually, it's not really about that. Actually, in the giving, I receive. I realize that I'm doing like this. This is my own spiritual practice. This is my own going back to God through this program that I'm teaching, because I'm teaching what I need to learn. So then I'm gaining so much more than money from the process. You see, so that's how the Holy Spirit looks at it. And it's like, yeah, okay, and I'll yes, on the level of form, there's some money changing hands, but it's done in a spirit of giving rather than a spirit of getting.
Yeah.
So does that, and obviously every situation is going to be different, but it's really about the intention of the person. Are you trying to get as much as possible, or are you giving? Are you in that mindset of, oh, well, I really want to give and I really want to add value? And that makes the fundamental difference in your interaction with the person. Because if you get from someone's energy and from their behavior that they are just trying to get stuff from you, they're trying to take from you, immediately your defenses go up, don't they?
Yeah.
You go, oh no, I don't. So it's actually counterproductive for the getter, because if someone realizes that, then the giving stops. Someone will just stop. And then they won't continue being a customer. They might do it once, but then there's not an ongoing business from that in a business context or relationship. If you're in a relationship with someone, if you think someone is trying to get something from you all the time, then the walls go up. No, like, I feel like I'm being used here. I'm being taken advantage of. So the barriers go up, and I'm not going to do this. So in the long term, it doesn't make sense. In the short term, it might. Short term, you might get more materially anyway. But in the long term, any business model based on getting and taking is not going to be sustainable, because it's violating the truth, which ultimately actually is why the entire system we're in, this whole system, fiat currency and debt-based and so on, it's not sustainable, because it's about getting rather than giving. It's about taking rather than adding value. So how sustainable is that as a thought system? It's not at all. Just is why the entire economic system is not sustainable. But anyway, we won't go there. But But it's all about thoughts. If you look at the underlying intention of it, that's what Jesus is getting us to do here. Okay, so we move on from that to number 5. If you can read paragraph 5, please.
I gave only love to the kingdom because I believed that was what I was. What you believe you are determines your gifts. And if God created you by extending himself as you can only extend yourself as he did. Only joy increases forever, since joy and eternity are inseparable. God extends outward beyond limits and beyond time, and you who are co-creator with him extend his kingdom forever and beyond limit. Eternity is the indelible stamp of creation. The eternal are in peace and joy forever.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very comforting words. God created you by extending himself as you. You can only extend yourself as he did. That makes sense. You see how this leads, supports the idea of the higher purpose. Extend yourself as he did. So when you extend yourself as he did, you give love, which is creation. Creation to create is to love. When you do that, and you find a specific way of doing that in this world, it feels very fulfilling, because it's how you translate this high level idea of God extending love to you, and then you extending love as God did to you. It's how you translate that into the level of form through this higher purpose.
And it feels fulfilling because it is your higher purpose.
Yeah, exactly. You're just finding a way to act that out, to live this in the dream. That plays out in form in different ways. It's not really the form that's important, but it's that movement of the mind of extending love and going, I'm really, in my words, my thoughts, my actions, I'm extending this love outwards. And then I feel joyful. Then I feel connected, because I'm feeling now that God's mind is extending through me outwards. Now I'm in alignment with God. I'm fulfilling my true purpose, which is to extend love. I feel that the joy and the fulfillment naturally. I don't have to go, oh, I need to get joy. That's the ego's idea. It's like joy comes when you extend love. It comes naturally. So it's inside out rather than upside down as the ego's. And it's just translating this kind of high level metaphysics into the practicality of your life, which the higher purpose does. Okay, if you're going to do that and you're going to extend love in your actions and your words through that higher purpose, then you're fulfilling this divine purpose. You're extending, allowing love, allowing God really to extend through you. You are being done through. It's not really you doing it, because there's no separate identity, you see. So the idea of a separate self doing things in time and space, trying to achieve certain outcomes, simply just fades away. It gets undone in this process. You see how this all takes you back to oneness. It's beautiful, really. It's amazing. Genius. Okay. So John, if you can read number 6 for us, please.
To think like God is to share his certainty of what you are, and to create like him is to share the perfect love he shares with you. To this, the Holy Spirit leads you, that your joy may be complete, because the kingdom of God is whole. I have said that the last sleep, the last step,
Freudian simply.
yeah, the last step is the reawakening of knowledge is taken by God. This is true. but it is hard to explain in words because words are symbols and nothing that is true need be explained. However, the Holy Spirit has the task of translating the useless into the useful, the meaningless into the meaningful, and the temporary into the timeless. He can therefore tell you something about this last step.
Okay. Anything stand out for you there?
I think the thought that's going through my mind is the course has been around for 50 years now, and I don't understand why more people aren't studying it.
Yeah. Well, difficult language. These ideas are not common ideas. We live in a world of illusion where there's all these competing forces and wanting your attention. Much easier to go on social media, play around on there, or go shopping, or turn on the TV, or there's many distractions.
Yeah.
And people they're scared. This is the end game. You start to really get into the course. This is not a trivial path or purpose. This is the end game. You really start to unwind your entire mind. You question everything. I mean, you can start thinking you're going insane. I've had that. I'm like, am I going mad here? Am I mad or is the world mad? This is the question. Because if you start to wake up and see the world's insane, then, the world will call you insane. So, well, you're insane. No, this is all real. This is real. This is true. Like, how can you doubt it? This is what your senses tell you. This is the way the world's set up. Everyone else believes it. You must be insane.
Yeah.
That's how it works. So it's not a path for the faint-hearted. This, I tell you, it's like you've really got to have a deep willingness and courage to say, okay, I'm going to do this, because this is not the way the world thinks. It's not the way most people's friends, family, etc. think. We're just taught to fit into the system, carry on, live your life, get a good job, have a family, do whatever. This is your purpose in life. And this just brings all of that into question. Questioning everything. So, we're not encouraged to do that. Most people are too conditioned. They're too caught up in the conditioned mind to say, okay, I'm willing to question everything. He says at some point, this course requires that you question every value that you hold. Every value you hold. Okay. I mean, that's quite hectic. That's quite radical.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in terms of my my marketing of this course, it's not that easy to market. Okay, so this is a path. It really works. It's deep transformation. But I'm going to ask you to question every single value that you hold. Someone goes, whoa, I didn't sign up for this. Like, I want more love, peace, and joy. I want more abundance in my life. Yeah, sure. But do I want to question every single value that I hold?
Yeah.
Not necessarily. All right. So now I'll go for, no, this doesn't work for me. I'll go for Tantra or some other path, which I can kind of, that's cool. That could work for me. Because I don't really necessarily want to do the heavy lifting. I don't really want to question every value and really go into this deep split in my mind and go, oh my God, like I'm just seeing. I'm really starting to see, because it's horrifying in a way. You go through this journey of awakening, you go like, oh my God, what have we done? Like, what I thought was normal and real, and like, this isn't real at all. This is a false reality. My entire life is false. Wow.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean? And like who's gonna, like your normal sort of family, friends, social network, they're not going to support you in that. What you're saying, the entire world's false. No, come on, bro. It's like, look, have a beer, watch the rugby, just chill out, like whatever. Like, what are you getting? Like, there's this very strong pull. The ego's created the entire world to keep you from the truth. And most people are in that. Most people are just living their lives. I mean, as Morpheus says in the Matrix, says they're not ready to be unplugged. Most people are just, they're so hopelessly dependent on the system that they're not ready to be unplugged. They think that the world is real. They think the system supports them. I think that's been shaken by this COVID thing, big time. So that's good. Okay, well, maybe the system doesn't support you that well. The system's kind of falling apart.
Yeah.
So then people start questioning. Same, but as long as your needs on the material level can be met by the system, most people are happy with it. They're just, okay, well, it's not perfect, but yeah, I can have a reasonable life, can have some money, have some spare time. I have to work 9 to 5, but okay, I've got weekends. I can party on the weekends, or I can do whatever on the weekends. That's my fun time. And then I have to go and that's a very entrenched system. This just questions all of it. It says, what are you actually doing? Who are you really? Why are you here? What are you doing? What's the world really about? Everything you thought you knew actually is not true. Yeah, in a nutshell, I think that's why this is a radical path in teaching. And you've got Christian terminology. You've got a book this is not light reading. I mean, in a world of social media where people are like sending instant text messages and stuff, this is like doesn't really fit into that, does it?
Yeah.
It's going much deeper.
Reminds me a little bit of the story when the George Harrison and the Beatles were getting interested in meditation, and George Harrison got the idea that you had to actually work. You had to put the work in to do the meditation. And I think Elvis came along and said, "Oh, this looks like good. This looks good. How much does it cost?" and
how much does meditation cost?
He just couldn't get his head around the fact that he couldn't buy it.
Yeah, exactly. Different thought system. Yeah, that's a good story. Because you can't buy truth. You can't buy joy and happiness.
No.
It's the inner work. Some of the happiest people in the world are some of the poorest people.
Yeah.
And some of the most miserable are the richest, in terms of material wealth. So you can't buy this stuff. This is an inner journey. And it's hard, like it's hard work. You've got to do some spiritual work. Put in the time. You've got to go through things that aren't going to be comfortable, that are difficult, that challenge you. We've been taught, I don't know, that everything should be easy. Well, life of convenience, easy. Everything's got to be touch of a button, quick result. I want to get instant result. This isn't that at all. So like, no, this is a deep spiritual path. This is years and years of practice and study will get you to a state of samadhi, but it's a lifetime path. It's completely contrary to the direction of popular culture. Which means, I mean, I've tried to market this. It's not that easy to market this stuff.
No.
It really isn't.
No.
Like I've done Google ads, and you can attract people with catchphrases, and then they come along and then they start finding out what it is, and they go, oh no, I'm not sure about that. That doesn't really, I wanted more abundance, so I wanted like a quick fix answer to my problems, or I wanted, like now he's talking about God and this work. This course sounds like a lot of work. So it is a lot of work.
Sue's just reminded me,
John,
that we've got somebody coming in 10 minutes time as well.
Okay, well that's fine. So we just wrap it up then. We've got one more paragraph. So let's read that and then we'll close it out. Sue, do you want to read paragraph 7 for us, please?
God does not take steps because his accomplishments are not gradual. He does not teach because his creations are changeless. He does nothing last because he created first and for always. It must be understood that the word first, as applied to him, is not a time concept. He is first in the sense that he is the first in the Holy Trinity itself. He is the prime creator because he created his co-creators. Because he did, time applies neither to him nor to what he created. The last step that God will take was therefore true in the beginning, is true now, and will be true forever. What is timeless is always there, because its being is eternally changeless. It does not change by increase, because it was forever created to increase. If you perceive it as not increasing, you do not know what it is. You also do not know who created it. God does not reveal this to you because it was never hidden. His light was never obscured because it is his will to share it. How can what is fully shared be withheld and then revealed?
Okay, anything stand out for you there? Quite a long paragraph. The last step is still true. It's taking us out of the idea of time. Okay, any questions on that? Comments?
It's just a beautiful summation, really.
Yeah. Nice way to end the session. The last step was true in the beginning, is true now, and will be forever true. Okay, so we should close it out with we'll practice the lesson for 5 minutes, and then it should take us to the hour and we'll finish. So just making yourself comfortable. So your feet shoulder width apart, cup your hands in your lap, keep your back straight, close your eyes. And just start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. So you're breathing in, you notice how the stomach rises, the chest rises, subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Just pausing at the top of the inhale. Checking in with your mind, so just noticing any thoughts and emotions going on there. Particularly anything that's difficult, any negativity, any difficulty, just breathe into it. It's a nice power breath. You do it in the 3 phases. You can lock the energy in with your sphincter muscle, root lock, squeeze the abdominal muscles, in and down. Maximal inhale breath. 3rd phase of the breath, chin forward. Just hold the breath here. So you scan the mind and notice any of these thoughts. And to help you release them, just remind yourself that God, this eternal, infinite, loving presence, is my source. I cannot see this, whatever situation it is, this personal situation, apart from Him. Cannot see the situation apart from Him. Cannot see the situation apart from love. So any unloving thoughts simply are not God's will. They do not exist. And as you exhale, just blow them away. Exhaling them out like dark smoke out of your mouth. Into the nothingness they really are. Pull the lower stomach into the spine, expel the last remaining air out. Let's pause here at the bottom of the exhale in peace and stillness for a few moments, and add in some personal thoughts around these ideas. You might say, I see through the eyes of forgiveness. I see the world as blessed. The world can show me who I really am. I see my own thoughts, which are like God's. Any thought related more or less directly to today's idea is suitable. So just breathing in and out through your nose as you do this. Into a nice deep slow rhythmical pattern with the breath, watching the breath flowing in through the nostrils and out through the nostrils. And just let these thoughts come. You don't have to have any obvious relationship to the idea. God is my source and I cannot see apart from Him. But they connected, they're part of the Holy Spirit's thought system. If you find your mind wandering, if you begin to be aware of thoughts which are clearly out of accord, today's idea, if you seem to be unable to think of anything, you can open your eyes, repeat the first phase of the exercise period. Say, God is my source, I cannot see. And then as you look around, apply the idea to whatever you see. So I cannot see this chair apart from Him. I cannot see this wall apart from Him. God is my source. I cannot see that picture apart from Him. Just apply it indiscriminately to half a dozen things. Notice how you feel. And then close your eyes again, turning inward. And God is my source. I cannot see anything apart from Him. And add any related thoughts that come to mind. I see through the eyes of forgiveness. I see only with God's eyes. I see only love. Whatever comes to you, just allow it to come. Connect in with this source energy. Smile. You're in the source. You're connected to it. You're one with it. And remember, I said you've got some people visiting. Try to apply this idea. Tell the person or people silently. God is my source. I cannot see you apart from Him. Love is my source. I cannot see you apart from love. It's another way of saying the same thing. Use whichever form, God or love, is more impactful for you. And if anything should happen to distress you, just use the idea again. God is my source. I cannot see this apart from Him. You can do a little breath break with it. I've sent you a recording. And I've recorded this as well. So you can listen to this 7-minute recording if you need to top yourself up. to reconnect with your source. So one more time, say, God is my source. I cannot see anything apart from him. Love is my source. I cannot see anything apart from love. And open your eyes, look around, apply the idea for 30 seconds to whatever you see around you. God is my source. I cannot see this, whatever your eyes happen to rest on, this chair, this table, apart from him. Do that for a few objects to conclude the practice period. Say one more time to yourself, God is my source. Love is my source. I cannot see anything apart from him or it. God is my source. Love is my source. I cannot see apart from him or it. And just anchor that nice connected state in. So you're going to stay connected to the source for the rest of the afternoon and evening and on into tomorrow. So it is said, and so it is done. Which brings us to the end of the session. Thank you, Sue and John.
Thank you, Jono.
Thank you, Jono.
And have a good evening, and I'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you. You too. And try and apply with these people who are arriving shortly. Try and apply this. God is my source. I cannot see you apart from him. When you meet them, just silently and during the conversation or visit or whatever, and see what happens.
Mm.
Okay. See you tomorrow afternoon, 12:30.
Bye.
Tomorrow evening you won't make it, because you're got your
Correct,
No.
yes. Yeah, we will.
Okay. So try and join the afternoon session then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.